Chapter 2249. Killing Wild Lion Ancestor and the Others in One Battle Shocked the World. When many others who had received the news rushed over, they could only see corpses strewn all over the place. It was a complete mess. Many people couldn't help but secretly rejoice that they had come late. If they had come a little earlier, wouldn't they have been completely buried here? Especially after seeing the battle situation at the scene, many people could imagine how terrifying it was even without using magical powers to recall the situation at that time. It could almost be said that it was a complete sweep. However, in this great tool Emperor Heaven, it was not easy for them to find clues. The suppression of the great tool Emperor Heaven was too strong. However, the only thing they could be sure of was that Yi Shiwen's terror was far beyond their imagination. There were still traces of the battle between the two sides. Countless sword Dao laws suppressed the heavens. Even looking at it from afar, there was a kind of feeling of fear. Originally, many people were very upset that they didn't find Yi Shiwen first. But now that they thought about it, there was no doubt that they were lucky to find Yi Shiwen first. They were rushing to their death. In particular, according to the ancient battle traces left at the scene, they could roughly estimate some of Yi Shiwen's strength. They couldn't help but tremble with fear. Although the whole battle was very fierce, it seemed to be a one-sided battle. Wild Lion Ancestor had an absolute advantage in terms of numbers, but in the overall battle, he was completely defeated. There were very few traces of their counterattack, mainly the traces of Yi Shiwen's attack. This made everyone even more frightened. Who had the absolute advantage in numbers? If they didn't look carefully, they would think that Yi Shiwen found a group of people to beat up Wild Lion Ancestor. Is he still human? They were completely dumbfounded. They didn't expect that it would turn out like this. Even the craziest person didn't expect that Yi Shiwen would erupt with such amazing combat strength. Many people guessed that Yi Shiwen must have obtained some great fortuitous encounter. Otherwise, how could his strength advance by leaps and bounds? In terms of strength, Wild Lion Ancestor was more than a level stronger than Aoshiba and the others. After all, so many years of accumulation was not a joke. In many people's opinion, Yi Shiwen was at most similar to Wild Lion Ancestor and the others, but the result completely subverted everyone's expectations. This kid's momentum has already been established, and we're actually not his match. The new generation truly excels the old. It's true that talented people are born in every generation. There's actually such a peerless heaven's favorite in the human race. Unimaginable. Fortunately, we didn't rush to our deaths. After confirming that Yi Shiwen had easily killed Wild Lion Ancestor and the others, everyone turned their attention to the experts of Dragon Island and Shrouding Heaven cult. They had been clamoring to kill Yi Shiwen all these years. It seemed as if they would kill Yi Shiwen anytime and anywhere. But now Yi Shiwen had completely revealed his amazing strength. He wasn't a pushover that they could easily need. What were they going to do in the face of such a tyrannical master? Even more terrifying news came out. There was a rumor that Yi Shiwen didn't intend to hide from these two sections. On the contrary, he was tracking down the whereabouts of Dragon Island and Covering Heaven cult. It seemed as if he wanted to exterminate these two sections. As soon as this news came out, the entire Tool Emperor Heaven was shaken. Whether it was Shrouding Heaven cult or Dragon Island, they could be said to be the most powerful sections. There were countless masters, like the sands of Ganges River, like the clouds in the sky, endless. Yi Shiwen wanted to challenge these two sects head-on. When the two sects heard this, they were all furious. For many years, no one dared to be so arrogant. Even transforming deity Abyss didn't dare to face these two sects at the same time, let alone Yi Shiwen. He actually dared to challenge the majesty of these two sections. It was simply an act of seeking death. However, Yi Shiwen was born in transforming deity Abyss, and there was also a behemoth like Hidden Valley above him. He was not a pushover that could be bullied by everyone. For a time, there was a storm among these outsiders. Countless people were waiting to see a conflict between the two sides. What's more, they hoped that transforming deity Abyss would also join in this battle. While everyone was waiting to see how the people of Dragon Island and the others would react, they didn't know that Aoshiba didn't directly find trouble with Yi Shiwen as everyone thought. Instead, he directly went to the depths of the Tool Emperor Heaven. This was a very powerful tribe. Countless treasure demons shuttled back and forth. It was unknown how many years they had been in operation. There were hundreds of millions of treasure demons of different strengths living in this tribe. Suddenly, a calamity descended. A group of over 100 people directly charged in. These people were extremely powerful, sweeping through everything before them. Wherever they passed, the treasure demons couldn't even withstand a single blow. They were killed on the spot and refined. They weren't their opponents at all. This was Aoshiba and the others. Although Aoshiba suffered a big loss in the hands of Yi Shiwen, it wasn't because he was incompetent. It was just that Yi Shiwen was too powerful. He was almost invincible against these treasure demons that had not yet reached the Tao. No one was a match for him. Who are you? How dare you break into my tribe? An incomparably terrifying roar came from the sky. It was accompanied by a boundless invisible pressure that crushed down. Inlong, come out and see me. Aoshiba didn't show any fear. He roared on the spot. The entire tribe was in an uproar. They didn't know who this person was. A figure that was as huge as a mountain appeared, and a huge hand reached out to grab Aoshiba. Do you still recognize this token? Aoshiba took out a token with a dragon engraved on it. He directly inserted his spirit power into it and activated the token. The incomparably tyrannical figure screamed on the spot. He directly rolled down and crushed countless treasure demons to death. His body fiercely hit the ground, creating a huge crack. You are from the Dragon Island, the huge figure said with a bit of fear in his voice. Yes, it seems that you still remember, Aoshiba said coldly. The surrounding treasure demons were completely scared silly when they saw this scene. They couldn't believe that the god of their tribe, the invincible god, had been easily subdued at this time. He didn't even have the strength to fight back. You want to control a god? Dream on. After the initial fear, the incomparably huge figure was shocked and angry. As a god, he was high and mighty and enjoyed the worship of everyone. It had been many years since someone dared to treat him like this. If you want to die, you can give it a try. Although you have improved over the years, I believe that you should be able to sense that the gap between you and the old ancestor is still widening. If you obediently listen to my orders, then forget it. When I leave the equipment Emperor Heaven, you can still be a local tyrant. Otherwise, I will kill you in an instant. Aoshiba's eyes were cold as he looked at him. What do you want me to do? The figure gnashed his teeth and said. He had no choice but to lower his head when he was under the eaves. Ever since he met that person, although he borrowed his strength to prove his Tao, he was also forced to hand over his natal primordial spirit and became a slave. Now, even a junior dared to treat him like this. It was simply a great humiliation. However, that was a long, long time ago. It was so long ago that he had almost forgotten about it. If it wasn't for the sudden appearance of this person, he might have completely forgotten about it and become the local overlord of the Weapon Emperor Heaven. This was the last time. After this, he must find a way to erase the damned contract in his body. He absolutely couldn't let this happen again. Aoshiba shot a glance at the equipment Emperor Heaven. It seemed as if he had seen through the figure's thoughts, but he didn't care. In any case, he couldn't stay in the equipment Emperor Heaven for long. I want you to kill a person, a human outsider. I know that there are many antiques in the Weapon Emperor Heaven who are disgusted by the large number of outsiders who come every 100,000 years. Some of them have secretly violated the rules of the Weapon Emperor Heaven and other worlds to secretly hunt outsiders. You're a native of this world. I want you to contact them and kill that Yi Shiwen. As long as you can do it, you'll naturally benefit from it. Our Dragon Island doesn't lack cultivation resources for you. With the resources we'll provide, it won't be difficult for you to advance further within 1,000 years. What do you think? Aoshiba said indifferently. He had a carrot in one hand and a stick in the other. He wasn't afraid that Yi Shiwen would disagree. Alright, just this once, the figure said while gnashing his teeth. At this time, Yi Shiwen was standing on a mountain peak with one foot. No matter how the wind blew, he didn't move. His body was surging with vitality, and the sound of rushing thunder could be heard. It was as if he had become one with the entire mountain range that rose from the ground. After a long time, he opened his eyes and let out a sigh of relief. He had been cultivating hard for a month, but there wasn't much of a breakthrough in his cultivation. Sure enough, at this stage of cultivation, it would take a long time. 100 years, 1,000 years, even 10,000 years to achieve a breakthrough. 1,000 years of cultivation is not as good as a chance encounter. Yi Shiwen sighed. In the past month, he had only consolidated his cultivation. There was still a long way to go before he could truly reach the peak of the Paong realm 9th level. And he didn't know how long it would take to truly prove his Tao. The best way now is to find the inheritance of the Equipment Emperor. If I can obtain the inheritance of the Equipment Emperor, my cultivation will advance by leaps and bounds. It won't be a problem for me to go all the way to prove my Tao. Thinking of this, Yi Shiwen's eyes were a lot firmer. Dragon Island, covering Heaven Sect, any one of them was not easy to deal with. He didn't believe that Aoshiba would give up so easily. He must be brewing some conspiracy somewhere since he didn't come out at this time. But he didn't care. As long as he continued to enhance his strength, it was too childish to care about any conspiracy. Suddenly, Yi Shiwen felt many tyrannical auras surging in the surroundings. Chapter 2250. Yi Shiwen immediately sensed many tyrannical auras shuttling through the void. He opened the Eye of Salvation and gazed into the distance, and he instantly saw that over 100 powerful auras were faintly visible and shuttling through space a few thousand kilometers away. And they were led by a powerhouse in the early stage of the immortality realm with a boundless tyrannical aura. This immediately attracted Yi Shiwen's attention. One must know that Yi Shiwen had beheaded many existences that were comparable to the Tao-confirming expert. However, the existences that were comparable to the Tao-confirming experts were few and far between. Then, the genuine Tao-confirming experts were 1 in a million. Any Tao-confirming expert would enjoy a position of honor and cultivate to the peak. They were extraordinary. So, they wouldn't easily dispatch them under ordinary circumstances. Now a Tao validation expert was personally dispatched, which made him feel a little strange. But before he could think too much, these hundreds of experts had already arrived by his side. This was a lineup of hundreds of experts. Without exception, all of them were at the peak of the demigod realm. Such a lineup could be called elite and tyrannical. These were all the best of the local treasure demons. But Yi Shiwen was not afraid. He operated the Celestial Emperor Tool refining technique. His aura was no different from the local treasure demons. They would not attack him because of this. He was also very clear that the treasure demons in the Equipment Emperor Heaven seemed to be very angry about the opening of a gap in the Equipment Emperor Heaven once every 100,000 years. Every time a gap was opened, the treasure house in the depths of the Equipment Emperor Heaven would spit out a large number of divine objects to repair the gap. The loss was the strength of the Equipment Emperor Heaven. Therefore, it was very hostile to outsiders. He could easily break into the depths of the Tool Emperor's Heaven by taking advantage of this. Other people wouldn't easily choose to enter the depths of the Tool Emperor's Heaven unless they had already arrived at the time when the Tool Emperor's treasure house was spitting out divine objects. Otherwise, they wouldn't choose to enter the depths of the Tool Emperor's Heaven. Moreover, these treasure demons seemed to be from the same force. They were dressed in bright yellow and were of excellent quality. The Duanlong clan is handling matters. The leading Dao validation expert's tone was quite arrogant. Obviously, he was very confident in the Duanlong clan. No matter who it was impossible to ignore the Duanlong clan. In the equipment Emperor Heaven, this name represented supreme prestige. Yi Shiwen retreated a little. He was not afraid of trouble, and would not easily cause trouble, especially in an environment like the equipment Emperor Heaven, where the enemy was unknown. Great Commander, why are you wasting your breath on him? If he dares to stand in our way, just kill him. Someone behind him suggested. Don't complicate matters. Let me ask you, did you see a heavily injured fallen angel coming here? That Dao-confirming expert said. No, I've never seen them before. Yi Shiwen replied. Fallen angel, has anyone from the devil race entered the Tool Emperor Heaven this time? That Dao-confirming expert frowned and sized Yi Shiwen up. It seemed as if he was trying to determine whether Yi Shiwen was lying or not. Let's go and chase after her. We can't let her get away. The commander said coldly, I don't believe that she can still run far after being hit by my palm. A hint of anger appeared on his face. He had actually allowed someone to escape from his hands. It was simply a great humiliation. Yi Shiwen narrowed his eyes. Who were these people from the Duanlong clan looking for? Looking at their flustered and exasperated appearance, even the experts of Dao confirming level had personally come out. It must not be a small matter. However, this had nothing to do with him. The great commander didn't know that Yi Shiwen had already sized them up with the eye of redemption. All of them were treasure demons that had been born from the treasure energy. None of them had genuinely cultivated from a divine tool. He was very disappointed. He only wanted a divine tool to feed the heavenly source mirror. Otherwise, there would be no need to complicate matters. These people still didn't know that they had truly walked out of the gates of hell. They were able to survive because Yi Shiwen was too lazy to deal with them. Otherwise, they would have already died in Yi Shiwen's hands. These people dispersed one after another. They dispersed their divine senses and spread out in a fan shape to search. Although there weren't many of them, each and every one of them had tyrannical strength. It was difficult to escape from their search range within 100,000 miles. They had already disappeared into the horizon in a short while. Yi Shiwen was about to leave when suddenly, a pale golden bloodstain suddenly appeared in the sky. It dripped down drop by drop. A petite figure fell out of the void. Yi Shiwen, a weak figure, came out of that petite figure, and fell down from the sky. Yi Shiwen quickly caught her in midair before she fell halfway. He saw that it was a young girl of the fallen angel clan. Her long light gray hair was softly hanging on her chest. Her skin was as white as snow. However, her delicate face was deathly pale at this time. Pale golden blood was continuously overflowing from the corners of her mouth. Ling Fei. How could Yi Shiwen not recognize her? This wasn't the Ling Fei who had threatened to take him as a slave. She had wanted him to take her to the human world. Ling Fei seemed to be 1 or 2 years older than she had been in the past. She was 17 or 18 years old. She was at the age of a flower. She still had a bit of baby fat on her tender appearance in the past. However, she had completely grown up now. She was definitely a beauty who could cause the downfall of a country. However, Yi Shiwen found it strange that Ling Fei had come in. More importantly, he hadn't even sensed that Ling Fei had been hiding in the half-plane a moment ago. This was more dreadful than anything else. He would be courting death if someone were to come so close to him again without him being aware of it. However, he couldn't care so much at this time. He promptly picked up Ling Fei and took a big stride. He had already appeared thousands of miles away. Then, he had completely disappeared into the void with another stride. He had gone in the opposite direction from where those people had gone a moment ago. Those people had undoubtedly been looking for Ling Fei if he hadn't guessed wrong. Wouldn't he be caught red-handed if they were to turn around and attack him if he continued to stay here? And, just as Yi Shiwen had expected, those people had turned around and returned to their base. It's really related to that person from before. Damn it! This blood was left behind by that fallen angel. That great commander couldn't help but become furious. It was an extraordinary shame and humiliation. He had been tricked by Yi Shiwen. He had been completely fooled. But he hadn't known that they were passing by. Search. Send me a message. Search. We must find them. I want to dismember their corpses into thousands of pieces. The great commander roared. Great commander, she is the person that the second young master wants. It wouldn't be good to kill her. Someone reminded. Kill her. This is a time of crisis. This slut dared to steal the divine tool. She must be a spy. It's good to kill her. I will bear the responsibility if the second young master blames me. The great commander coldly said. Don't say anything. Chase. We must catch up with them. These people immediately chased in Yi Shiwen's direction. Yi Shiwen landed in a valley. He smelled the faint fragrance of her body. He put Ling Fei down. Then, he placed his hand on her back. He channeled his real elemental energy, and operated the phoenix regeneration technique in her body. The deathly pale color on her face faded a lot after a while. She began to look a little rosy. Cough, cough. She violently coughed twice, and spouted out a mouthful of dirty blood. But her face looked a little rosy. Yi Shiwen heaved a sigh of relief. He knew that Ling Fei's injuries would immediately get better after spitting out this mouthful of dirty blood. Ling Fei finally got better after a while. This was also because the phoenix regeneration technique was operating outside her body. If it was Yi Shiwen, this kind of injury wouldn't have taken so long. Yi Shiwen? Ling Fei shouted. Then, she lowered her eyelids, fell into Yi Shiwen's arms, and fell into a deep sleep. Yi Shiwen didn't know whether to laugh or cry. She was quite daring here. Moreover, she wasn't vigilant at all. However, he also knew that Ling Fei had consumed too much of her life energy. The phoenix regeneration technique was amazing. However, it consumed her life energy every time she healed. The entire valley was abnormally quiet. It was so quiet that one could hear her faint breathing. Yi Shiwen didn't move. He was like a statue. The night sky of the Tool Emperor Heaven was no different from the outside world. The moonlight sprinkled down. It was full of treasures. The power of the moonlight was mixed with treasures and principles. It made people feel a kind of carefree feeling as if their whole body was opening up. Crackle! The bonfire next to her emitted crackling sounds from the burning branches, illuminating the valley. The cool white moonlight shone on her face. Her creamy white skin looked even whiter than the snow. Her captivating red lips opened and closed from time to time. Suddenly, she opened her eyes. Her gem-like big gray eyes moved slightly. Then, she stretched her body. I haven't slept so well for a long time. Then, she turned her head to look at Yi Shiwen. She didn't feel the slightest bit embarrassed when facing Yi Shiwen. In fact, she looked like she was very familiar with him. Hey, don't you want to explain why you're here? Yi Shiwen asked. I heard that the Tool Emperor Heaven is very fun. So, I came here quietly. Ling Fei smiled sweetly. You came here quietly. Did you sneak out of the devil world again? Yi Shiwen recalled that Ling Fei had escaped from the devil world when she was just a great sage. Of course, she had been taken back by her elder in the end. However, it had left a very deep impression on Yi Shiwen. That elder had given Yi Shiwen an unfathomable feeling. It was simply immeasurable. What do you mean sneak out? Ling Fei was dissatisfied. She pouted her small mouth and kicked her slender white legs. It seemed as if she was relaxing the stiff muscles of her whole body. I walked out openly. I've been bored to death for hundreds of years. But you didn't come to play with me. Yi Shiwen suddenly blushed with shame. He had dared to go to the devil world's fallen angels' territory to look for Ling Fei. However, he would have been killed in seconds with his weak strength at that time. Chapter 2251. He didn't know the immensity of heaven and earth at that time. He hadn't even reached the great sage realm, but he had dared to wander around the devil world. Now that he thought about it, he realized that he had been too stupid and naive at that time. There were countless experts in the weapon Emperor Heaven. It was hard to calculate. The devil world's foundation was stronger than the weapon Emperor Heaven. It had produced several devil monarchs. So, how could there not be any powerful experts? The fallen angel clan was one of the 8 royal clans of the devil race. Their strength was unimaginably deep. Even with Yi Shiwen's current strength, the man who had taken Ling Fei away was still unfathomable and unfathomable. Perhaps he wouldn't be able to come back if he went to find Ling Fei. Thinking of this, he thought of Man Yun. She was a sonorous woman who aimed to be the first female emperor since ancient times. He didn't know how she was doing now. You're distracted. What are you thinking about? Ling Fei puffed up her cheeks and looked at Yi Shiwen with dissatisfaction. Her gem-like eyes revealed a kind of emotion. She was very unhappy. Nothing. Yi Shiwen shook his head. You haven't said anything yet. Why did you run out? I don't want another person to suddenly appear at that time. I can't beat that uncle of yours. If he sees me with you again, he will think that I kidnapped you again. If that happens, I will be dead. So you're afraid of this. It's okay. Ling Fei stood up, bent down, and patted Yi Shiwen's head as she said, I'm already out of the devil realm this time. It won't be easy for them to find me. The myriad heavens and realms are so big. I can roam freely for a long time. These hundreds of years have almost made me stupid. Her tone was like coaxing a child. It made Yi Shiwen speechless. A touch of snow white entered his eyes as Ling Fei bent down. A faint fragrance assailed his nostrils. Ling Fei also reacted. Her small face became somewhat flushed. However, she couldn't help but chuckle when she saw Yi Shiwen's awkward appearance. She was a little embarrassed, but also a little crafty. Yi Shiwen stood up, glanced at Ling Fei and said, with your brain, you won't become stupid even after being locked up for 1,000 years. You said that. Can I understand that you're complimenting me? Ling Fei said with a smile. As you wish. Yi Shiwen replied. Sometimes, he realized that he couldn't do anything to Ling Fei. Well, now that you have woken up, you should hurry up and leave. If you don't leave now, they will catch up to you. Although I don't know what kind of trouble you have caused, but it has nothing to do with me. You better stay away from me. I am already in trouble, don't drag me into it. Yi Shiwen said mercilessly. Do you really have the heart to chase me away? Ling Fei looked at Yi Shiwen with a pitiful expression on her face. They are very fierce. They even ruthlessly attack such a cute and beautiful genius girl like me. I was your master. So, you can't ignore me. Yi Shiwen felt as if smoke was rising from the top of his head. How many years had it been since he had met a master? Moreover, he had never acknowledged him. Acting cute doesn't work on me. Let me tell you, those guys who are chasing you are nothing, but those guys who are looking for trouble with me are the real big trouble. Have you heard of Dragon Island? I have offended them now, so if you don't want to be implicated by me, then leave quickly. Yi Shiwen said in a threatening tone. Wow, it's so exciting. Ling Fei had already jumped up. It sounds so exciting. Take me with you, take me with you. Are you sick? Yi Shiwen touched Ling Fei's forehead and asked with a puzzled look on his face. It's so exciting. Moreover, I don't have any relatives in the Weapon Emperor Heaven. Those people from the Broken Dragon clan will certainly not let me off. Do you have the heart to let me die alone? Ling Fei said pitifully. It's not too late if you leave now. Do you have some divine tool on your body that can conceal your aura? Even I couldn't detect your approach. Those idiots certainly can't find you. If you leave the instrument Emperor Heaven now, they won't be able to catch up to you even if they want to. Yi Shiwen shook his head and said, I will be in big trouble if you follow me now. Yi Shiwen could see that Ling Fei must have some divine tool on her body that had isolated all her aura. He couldn't see through Ling Fei even if he opened his eyes of redemption. If you don't take me with you, then I will stay here and let them find me. Then they will kill me. Ling Fei simply sat down. I will spank your butt if you don't go. Yi Shiwen was forced. He had never met someone like Ling Fei. Whether it was Yi Qianqian's coldness, Hua Minghan's otherworldly elegance, or Man Yun's determination, none of them were as difficult to deal with as Ling Fei. He couldn't beat her, nor could he scold her. After all, she had helped him in the past. Then you can spank me, Ling Fei said stubbornly. Her tears were about to fall. I'm sorry to disturb the two of you flirting. Suddenly, an incomparably cold voice appeared above the valley. Hundreds of figures surrounded the entire valley along with this figure. They were none other than the great commander of the Broken Dragon clan and his group. Who else could it be? He looked at Yi Shiwen with an ashen face. This guy had fooled him in front of his face. He had been beating wild geese all day long. Now, the wild geese had pecked his eyes. It was a great humiliation. It's you again, old man. Ling Fei simply jumped up. There was a bit of indignation on her delicate little face. She was injured in the hands of this great commander. Go. Yi Shiwen, bite him. Ling Fei waved her little hand and said. Yi Shiwen was about to act. But he staggered and fell to the ground. She really thinks that I'm a pet. She even wants to bite me. My illustrious reputation will be completely ruined if I do that. Don't think that we won't dare to do anything to you just because you're from the Fallen Angel clan. Our Duanlong clan has never been afraid of anyone. Could it be that the Fallen Angel clan would dare to kill their way into the Weapon Emperor heaven? The great commander bellowed with a malevolent expression on his face. You slut, hand over the thing. Yi Shiwen's face was gloomy. It seemed as if he could wring water out of it. He shot a glance at the great commander and said, Get lost or die. He was already in an extremely bad mood. So, he was extremely annoyed to see this great commander. Good boy. Don't be too insolent. You won't have a good time if you oppose our Broken Dragon clan. The great commander of the Broken Dragon clan hadn't made his move yet. But the expert at the peak of the half-god realm behind him had made his move. Murderous aura burst forth and pervaded the sky. The formidable aura wasn't concealed at all. It formed an aura that soared to the sky. The sun, the moon, and the stars revolved along with his fist and surged throughout the vast sky. Bang! However, this terrifying aura had only appeared for a moment. Then, it suddenly stopped on the spot. They saw that the expert's throat had been grabbed by a big cheek-condensed hand, and had been lifted into the sky. Bang! A loud bang was heard. This expert had turned into a rain of blood that had covered the sky. He had exploded with a loud bang. Only the void was still shaking. The rain of blood was fluttering, and the blood fog had filled the air. Even the moonlight had been covered with a layer of blood. Don't you understand human language? Yi Shiwen insipidly said. Comparable to Tao confirmation. These experts of the Broken Dragon clan had a bit of fear in their eyes. If Yi Shiwen was just an ordinary peak of the half-god realm, then it wouldn't be a big deal. However, he was actually a peak of the half-god realm comparable to Tao confirmation. This situation was completely different. Comparable to Tao confirmation? What a good comparable to Tao confirmation. Even if you are comparable to Tao confirmation, you are not Tao confirmation. The great commander of the Broken Dragon clan roared, and directly blasted a punch towards Yi Shiwen. A heavenly dragon rushed out of his body, and the sky instantly exploded. Endless laws emerged one after another. Under his control, it turned into a heavenly dragon that swallowed the heaven and earth, and directly blasted towards Yi Shiwen. He could see that Yi Shiwen was a strong opponent, so he didn't dare to show any mercy. Humph! Yi Shiwen coldly snorted. He forced out a sword aura from his finger, pinched it into a sword sign, and instantly slashed it, meeting the heavenly dragon head-on. Boom! The sword aura and the dragon's head collided fiercely, and the collision erupted with an incomparably powerful force. Clang! The sword aura increased in an instant and light splashed out. In just an instant, the heavenly dragon's head was cut off, and its entire body exploded. In an instant it was cleanly broken. Although it is not Tao confirmation, it is more than enough to break you. Yi Shiwen's voice was cold, and golden divinities appeared under his feet, forming a monstrous wave. He walked on the wave, and forced out a sword sign with his finger, charging towards the Broken Dragon clan's great commander. He didn't even bother to use the sky-splitting sword. The situation was completely different from when he had just broken through and fought against the Abyss Demon Master. The Broken Dragon clan's great commander's strength was above the Abyss Demon Master who had just broken through, but Yi Shiwen was more than 10 times stronger than before. What an amazing sword aura! You are not a native of the instrument Emperor Heaven, and I have never seen a martial art like yours. The Broken Dragon clan's great commander couldn't help but shout. That is because you are inexperienced. Yi Shiwen would definitely not admit it. The sword sign in his hand turned into a long sword and slashed down. You are going too far. The Broken Dragon clan's great commander was enraged. Today, I will let your blood splatter on the spot, and let you understand the gap between Tao confirmation and true Tao confirmation. Tao confirmation. Although the combat strength of Tao confirmation was comparable to Tao confirmation, in reality, there were very few who could defeat Tao confirmation. That was why the Broken Dragon clan's great commander was so confident. His 5 fingers clenched into a fist, and a powerful fist power surged within, forming an ocean of fist power. It turned into a vast ocean without an end. This was the domain formed by his fist power, and it had an incomparably domineering aura. Even the stars would lose their color in the domain of his fist power, submitting to his Tao of fist. Between heaven and earth, it instantly turned into a vast and boundless world of Tao of fist. His attainments in Tao of fist had long reached an exceptionally amazing level. Let me sublimate to the peak and smash everything that dares to block my way with one move. Chapter 2252. You? Yi Shiwen said. He took a step forward, and the golden wave under his feet directly turned into a giant dragon, charging into this terrifying boxing domain. The result surprised the masters of the Duanlong family. It was completely different from what they initially imagined. They originally thought that the great commander's boxing domain was enough to compete with any powerful master. However, it was completely shattered under the tearing of the golden dragon under Yi Shiwen's feet. This golden dragon was thousands of miles long. With a turn of its body, it could make the sky fall and the earth crack. It tore the domain all the way and charged towards the great commander. The senior commander clenched his fists tightly and punched them together in midair. The space torn open by the golden dragon also slowly healed. It seemed to trap Yi Shiwen in it. Countless fist energies rushed towards Yi Shiwen like stormy waves. They transformed into a terrifying force, and rushed towards Yi Shiwen one after another. Each wave was a full-powered attack from a Tao-confirming expert. At the level of a Tao-confirming master, the spiritual power was almost endless. There was no need to be afraid at all. A casual attack would be a full blow with infinite power. Comparable to a Tao-confirming master was only comparable to a Tao-confirming master in terms of combat power. It was not comparable to a Tao-confirming master in all aspects. Therefore, there were always individuals who could defeat a Tao-confirming master. This was also the true source of the Duanlong family's great commander's confidence. Unfortunately, he couldn't see through Yi Shiwen's actual situation. He was one of those few individuals. In the face of such a boundless power, Yi Shiwen didn't back down. His eyes erupted with the power of redemption, which directly swept out. In terms of the cultivation of the power of redemption, he had already reached the pinnacle. Boom! 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 These waves that slammed over were directly blasted by his power of redemption on the spot. They were not a match at all. The golden dragon under his feet was still constantly advancing, sweeping all the way. This boxing domain couldn't stop Yi Shiwen's breakthrough at all. It directly swept out a path to invincibility. Yi Shiwen's strength was completely beyond the expectations of the Duanlong clan's great commander. The power of the Eye of Redemption was far beyond his imagination. At least, it didn't exist in the Tool Emperor heaven. For him, this was a brand new magical power. Obviously, it was not in his understanding. The power of redemption was to redeem the world and see through the essence in an instant. Therefore, this kind of trick was useless in front of Yi Shiwen's Eye of Redemption. Roar! The Duanlong clan's Grand Commander roared. The fist Dao domain was absorbed into his body. He clenched his fists and punched out. The sun, moon, and stars revolved around his fists, forming a real universe. This was actually drawing in the power of the stars from the distant universe. Borrowing the power of the stars from the universe, he suppressed all his opponent. This was also a very brilliant fist technique. Damn you! Prepare to die. Our Duanlong family's stardust revolving art is unparalleled. Today you will die without a burial. Die obediently. Behind him, the masters clamored one after another. They were frightened by Yi Shiwen just now. For them, it was a great shame. At this time, they roared one after another. Stardust revolving art is indeed a good technique. However, it's too weak in your hands. Yi Shiwen clenched his 5 fingers into a fist and punched out, breaking the stars in the universe on the spot. Rumble! The universe stars drawn by the Duanlong clan's stardust revolving art were smashed by Yi Shiwen on the spot, shattering inch by inch. Yi Shiwen took a step forward and blasted towards the Duanlong clan's Grand Commander. Bang! The power of his fist turned into the power of salvation, blasting into the chest of the Duanlong family's great commander, sending him flying hundreds of miles away like a cannonball. He slammed into the ground, creating a deep crack in the ground. The masters of the Duanlong clan were completely stunned. They were like ducks that were strangled by the neck, unable to shout a word. The stardust revolving art that they were most proud of was easily broken by Yi Shiwen like garbage. A fist-sized blood mark appeared on the chest of the Duanlong clan's Grand Commander. His flesh and blood were scattered by Yi Shiwen. For him who had a divine shell, this was simply inconceivable. Ever since he arrived at Dao validation, his divine shell had not been injured for a long time. Those so-called demigods who were comparable to Dao validation experts were rare enough to fight with him for more than 100 moves without falling into a disadvantageous position. Moreover, he had never seen or heard of someone who could injure him. For the first time, he looked at Yi Shiwen with a bit of fear in his eyes. This young man was too terrifying. Even among the real Dao validation experts, it was rare to see someone with such power. Well done. Kill that old guy. On the side, Ling Fei clapped her hands and cheered. Her small face was flushed. Obviously, she was very excited. Previously, she was injured by the Duanlong clan's Grand Commander. She hated him to the core. If she had not met Yi Shiwen, she would probably have died in their hands. Boom! Yi Shiwen's offensive followed him like a shadow. His strongest point was his physical body. Therefore, he didn't hide it at all. Another divine fist of redemption smashed down. At this moment, he was like the rebirth of the legendary incomparably powerful Lord of Redemption. He was incomparably powerful. Bang! Divine radiance splashed and blood splattered. The Duanlong clan's Grand Commander and Yi Shiwen collided head-on. His entire arm was almost smashed on the spot. His flesh and blood directly collapsed, revealing the dense bones within. There were even cracks on the golden bones. It was completely shaken by Yi Shiwen. This scene shocked everyone in the Duanlong clan. In their hearts, their Grand Commander had never been defeated by an existence who had not reached Dao validation. He was an invincible existence. Now, he was actually defeated. However, he looked dispirited and pale. He constantly staggered back to remove the violent power acting on his body. One of his arms was almost completely crippled. His gaze was fixed on Yi Shiwen. He did not dare to relax at all. The desolation of being past one's prime welled up in his heart. This was a feeling that should not have appeared. After proving the Tao, the gods would be immortal and would always be in their strongest state. Being past one's prime was a mortal state that could never appear on the gods. But at this time, it completely appeared in his body. He was once one of the heaven's prides who had shaken the imperial weapon heaven back then. He was born in the most orthodox Duanlong clan, and his star fragment revolving technique had defeated countless opponents. His fist was his strongest weapon, and after confirming his Tao, his attainments became even more unfathomable. But now it had been broken by someone easily broken. He was very strong, but the person opposite him was even stronger. This made him feel a sense of desolation in his heart. Could it really be that the new generation surpasses the old, and each generation is stronger than the previous one? This was no longer a battlefield that he could dominate. He was still lamenting, but Yi Shiwen did not give in at all. He took a step forward, transformed into the Lord of Redemption, and blasted a punch. The Duanlong clan's commander screamed. His other arm that resisted also exploded on the spot. Along with the void being blown into powder, a golden rain of blood fell from the sky. "I told you to get lost, but you didn't." Yi Shiwen, who was already furious, vented all of his impatience and negative emotions on the Duanlong clan's great commander. Bang! The Duanlong clan's commander's chest was pierced. Bang! 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 The fist of redemption continued to fall. At first, the Duanlong family commander could still scream. He wanted to resist Yi Shiwen by relying on the powerful recovery ability of a deity. But soon, he slowly lost his breath. No matter how strong his recovery ability was, it was still a far cry from Yi Shiwen's offensive. Until the end, he was completely silent. The Duanlong clan's commander had been blasted into meat paste by Yi Shiwen on the spot. Yi Shiwen suddenly felt that his mind was clear. He felt a little strange in his heart. He did not know why just now there was a surge of anger in his heart. It seemed that what they said had touched his reverse scale. Otherwise, it would not be like this. A great master of Tao confirming level, a powerful existence who was once invincible in his generation, now died in the hands of Yi Shiwen. It was not that he was not strong, but that someone stronger had appeared. Counting it, this was Yi Shiwen's third time slaughtering a god. Slowly, this was nothing to him. The remaining people of the Duanlong clan were completely scared. How was this possible? It was not that demigods had never slaughtered a god, but every time it happened, it was an earth-shattering battle, a battle that shocked the entire weapon Emperor Heaven. Once such a person was born, he would be an outstanding person. It could be said that it was difficult to find one in 1,000 or even 10,000 years. Now it happened in front of them. If it was true that a great battle happened, it would be nonsense. Because from the beginning to the end, it was Yi Shiwen who was suppressing the Duanlong clan's great commander. The Duanlong clan's great commander had no strength to fight back. Go quickly. Report to the clan and ask them to send people to kill this guy." Someone shouted and fled in all directions. "Yi Shiwen, don't let them escape. Otherwise, we won't be able to escape if we inform the people of the Duanlong clan." Ling Fei quickly said loudly. "You don't need to tell me, I know." Yi Shiwen's big hand stretched out and turned into palm shadows that filled the sky. These elite demigod peak experts of the Duanlong clan who wanted to escape couldn't escape at all. They were horrified to find that the surrounding space had been sealed. It was completely sealed by a strong force. They couldn't move at all. Yi Shiwen suddenly clenched his fist. It seemed as if these people had been squeezed by some inconceivable force. They exploded in the air with a loud bang and turned into a mass of blood fog. Then, they completely exploded. None of them escaped. Compared to Yi Shiwen, their strength was too weak. Now, can you tell me why they are so desperate to kill you? Yi Shiwen turned to look at Ling Fei. Chapter 2253. Yi Shiwen looked at Ling Fei. No matter which force, a Tao-confirming expert was the most precious treasure. Except for young heroes like Ao Shiba, 10 wild lion old ancestors, or even 100 wild lion old ancestors were not as valuable as a Tao-confirming expert, even though their combat power might be similar. But the value between them was like heaven and earth. The most important point was that as long as an immortal realm powerhouse did not encounter a great calamity, he would be immortal. For a force, there was nothing more important than this. One could imagine how anxious the Duanlong clan was to be able to send such a master to capture him. Yi Shiwen guessed that the people who came out to capture him were far more than just this group. Perhaps they had already divided into many groups to capture him together. Ling Fei glanced at Yi Shiwen and then said, "It's nothing much. I just took their broken dragon stone, and they chased me all the way here." Broken dragon stone? Yi Shiwen was a little puzzled. How important was this broken dragon stone that it was worth the Duanlong clan to go to such lengths? Broken dragon stone, Duanlong clan, there shouldn't be any connection. I don't know either. I've only heard their second young master say that it's the foundation of their Duanlong clan. It's something that the Tool Emperor had left behind when he was refining tools. Ling Fei quietly glanced at Yi Shiwen and said. Yi Shiwen couldn't help but be a little speechless. No wonder the Duanlong clan went crazy to capture Ling Fei. The reason why the Duanlong clan was called Duanlong clan was probably related to this broken dragon stone, and this broken dragon stone was related to the legendary Tool Emperor. No wonder the Duanlong clan was so nervous. But this thing should be heavily guarded. How could you get in touch with it? Yi Shiwen couldn't see through Ling Fei's cultivation. However, she was injured by the Duanlong clan's great commander, and was able to escape. So, Yi Shiwen could more or less determine that Ling Fei's cultivation was comparable to Tao confirming. She shouldn't have reached Tao confirming. With such a cultivation, it was impossible to steal the broken dragon stone no matter what. He, that stupid second young master wanted to show off in front of me. So, he took me inside to have a look. But, he still dared to make a move on me. So, this young lady taught him a good lesson. Then, I will take the broken dragon stone away. I will infuriate him to death. Ling Fei wrinkled her pretty nose and said with a smile. Yi Shiwen, you have to help me take revenge. That idiot is too annoying. Yi Shiwen frowned. If the Duanlong clan couldn't find the broken dragon stone, they wouldn't give up. Here, I'll give this broken dragon stone to you. Ling Fei flipped her fair and tender little hand, and an incomparably huge stone tablet appeared in her hand. It was about the height of 3 people, and there were 3 ancient and profound characters inscribed on it. Broken dragon stone. It was faintly exuding a kind of heavy pressure. It was a kind of divine object. It looked like a magic tool, but it didn't look like one. It could only be said that it was a kind of divine object that Yi Shiwen didn't recognize. Yi Shiwen didn't say anything. He directly collected the broken dragon stone, and put it into the Tianyuan mirror. Hey, you've accepted the things. So, you can't leave me behind. Ling Fei grabbed the corner of Yi Shiwen's clothes, and said in a flattering manner. A pair of big light gray eyes stared at Yi Shiwen. I know. Yi Shiwen didn't know what to do with her. I knew that you couldn't bear to part with me. Ling Fei immediately bounced up and down as she said, Where are we going next? To the Broken Dragon clan. Yi Shiwen looked into the distance, as if he could see the Broken Dragon clan in the depths of the Tool Emperor heaven. 3 days later, the Broken Dragon city occupied by the Broken Dragon clan welcomed a man and a woman. Their entry didn't attract anyone's attention, because during this period of time, There were too many people coming to the Broken Dragon City. This Broken Dragon City, which accommodated hundreds of millions of people, was almost a giant country. There were tens of millions of people coming and going every day. It was really too conspicuous. As the center of the Broken Dragon clan, it was naturally incomparably prosperous. At this time, Yi Shiwen had already changed his appearance. He had changed his appearance with the restraining breath technique. He was wearing a purple robe, and his face was handsome. His whole body was sharp and threatening. He was a proud young man, and his background wasn't small. Ling Fei, who was next to him, had already retracted her fallen angel wings. She had changed her appearance, and became more mature and gorgeous. However, there was a bit of playfulness in her light laughter from time to time. Yi Shiwen chose to go to the Broken Dragon City because of the so-called darkness under the light. The more one cared about a place, the more one would become a blind spot. The people of the Broken Dragon clan probably never thought that they would actually dare to come to the Broken Dragon City. Even if they thought about it, it was useless. The two had already concealed their auras, and were no different from the indigenous people of the Tool Emperor Heaven. I didn't expect that there is such a prosperous city in the Tool Emperor Heaven, Yi Shiwen said lightly. Many places that he had passed through before were still in the form of tribes, which were very backward. This Broken Dragon clan was different after all. However, it didn't mean that existing in the form of tribes was necessarily backward. The situation of each place was different. Sigh, the Tool Emperor Pavilion is really too much. The Broken Dragon Stone is our Broken Dragon clan's ancestral divine object, and they actually want to take it away. What can they do? The Tool Emperor Pavilion is powerful. In recent years, the trend of unifying the Tool Emperor Heaven has become more and more obvious. I don't think there is anything wrong with this. If the Tool Emperor Pavilion unifies the Tool Emperor Heaven, we should be able to concentrate all our strength to rush out of the Tool Emperor Heaven, and let the heavens witness the power of our Tool Emperor Heaven. Sigh, it is said that this is the last resort left by the Tool Emperor before he disappeared in the past. What else can we do? Countless people were discussing. The bustling Broken Dragon City seemed to have a feeling of the calm before the storm. The Tool Emperor Pavilion, just by listening to these people, one would know that it was another terrifying colossus in the Tool Emperor Heaven. However, Yi Shiwen felt a little strange. The Broken Dragon Stone was in his hands now. It seemed that the Broken Dragon clan hadn't announced this matter. Now, the whole world must be anxious to find the whereabouts of the Broken Dragon Stone. He glanced at Ling Fei. Ling Fei seemed to feel something. She raised her head, stuck out her tongue, and then rolled her eyes at Yi Shiwen. It seemed that she was saying, "What does it have to do with me?" In order to keep the Broken Dragon Stone, the Broken Dragon clan has invited young heroes to participate in the martial arts competition between the two clans. As long as we defeat the experts sent by the Tool Emperor Pavilion, we don't have to hand over the Broken Dragon Stone. However, it is said that the Tool Emperor Pavilion's Feng Qingji, who has just confirmed his Dao, will come in person. Our Broken Dragon clan doesn't have anyone who can deal with him. For this martial arts competition, the Broken Dragon clan has invested countless resources. However, the root of the problem is not here. If we can't find someone who can contend with Feng Qingji, everything will be in vain. The Broken Dragon Stone will also be handed over to the Tool Emperor Pavilion. It is said that the Broken Dragon Stone is hiding a big secret. Martial arts competition, Yi Shiwen. Such an interesting thing. Let's go and participate. Ling Fei hugged Yi Shiwen's arm and said, "You really wish for the world to be in chaos. Do you know that the people of the Broken Dragon clan are looking for you now? They're just short of turning the sky upside down." Yi Shiwen was speechless as he said. Ling Fei wished for the world to be in chaos. She simply wished for the world to be in chaos. The consequences would be unimaginable if they found out. There were countless experts in the Broken Dragon City. Yi Shiwen could faintly sense that there were many experts in the Broken Dragon City. He also knew that these people's auras were deliberately released in order to deter some people with bad intentions. Naturally, there were people like Yi Shiwen among them. They don't know. If you don't say it and I don't say it, how will they find out? Ling Fei said with a smile. Yi Shiwen had the restraining breath technique. No one could find out about him. However, Ling Fei also had her own unique instrument. No one could find out about her actual situation. Moreover, I heard from that idiot that whoever can represent the Broken Dragon clan to participate in the competition will receive great benefit. At that time, it won't be a problem for your cultivation to advance to the next level. Such a good opportunity doesn't come by often. Yi Shiwen was a little interested when he heard this. His current cultivation had stagnated. If he wanted to go further and cultivate to the peak of Paong Realm 9th level, he would need to spend more than 100 years at the fastest. As the saying goes, 1,000 years of bitter cultivation is not as good as a fortuitous encounter. He immediately made up his mind. Let's go and have a look. The core of the Broken Dragon City was where the Broken Dragon clan was located. It was the Broken Dragon Mansion. Other people were just vassals of the Broken Dragon clan. They were not qualified to live in the Broken Dragon Mansion. After entering the boundary of the Broken Dragon Mansion, Yi Shiwen clearly felt that the power of the Matrix shrouded his body faintly. There were all kinds of experts. It was bustling. At a glance, there were demigod-level existences everywhere. Demigods were considered as small experts in the Tool Emperor Heaven. However, here, they were just like ordinary people. Yi Shiwen and Ling Fei walked all the way in and did not attract anyone's attention. There are so many people today. Usually, there are not so many people at the entrance of the Broken Dragon Mansion. There are so many experts. Is that Xue Tianyu? It is said that he has already reached the peak of the demigod realm. His combat power is comparable to the existence of Dao confirmation. He is a well-known genius in the surrounding thousands of miles. Even he is attracted to this martial arts competition. In the void, someone flashed. He was dressed in white and walked into the Broken Dragon Mansion. It was Xue Tianyu who was mentioned by those people. This person's breath was very powerful. It was condensed with the void. Even the matrix of the Broken Dragon Mansion had no way to prevent him from being compatible with the world. However, Yi Shiwen found that there was more than one such peerless figure. It was very amazing. How many experts were attracted to this martial arts competition? It was really amazing. There are so many experts in the Tool Emperor Heaven. The Xian world cannot be compared with the Tool Emperor Heaven. The third district of the God-transforming abyss is far inferior to this place. I wonder how many experts there are in the second district and the first district. Yi Shiwen thought. Dang. A melodious bell rang and shook the entire Broken Dragon City. Chapter 2254. Everyone. A figure appeared in front of everyone as the bell rang. It was a middle-aged man in a luxurious robe. He looked around as if he was looking at everyone. Dao validation expert, another Dao validation expert. Yi Shiwen's heart skipped a beat. Putting aside the great commander of the Duanlong clan, he actually saw another Dao confirming level master. It was simply unimaginable how many such masters the Duanlong clan had. They had been passed down for countless years, and their foundation was deep and terrifying. Even so, when the Duanlong family faced the Equipment Royal Pavilion, they were still suppressed to the point of suffocation. How tyrannical was the Equipment Royal Pavilion! Yi Shiwen realized that he really could not look at the world from his original perspective. This world was far more vast and boundless than he thought. Whether it was the Equipment Royal Heaven or the Deification Abyss, there were powerful existences that far exceeded his original understanding. If he was still in the Xian world, he might not be able to solve these things in his lifetime. This is the Duanlong family's foreign affairs chief, Wushang Duanlong. It is rumored that before he reached Dao validation, he once defeated a Dao validation expert. After that, he passed the deity's tribulation and became even more amazing. Once he reached Dao validation, he was already invincible in the early stages of the immortality realm. He can be called a legend, a myth. I've also heard of his legend. I didn't expect Wushang Duanlong to be in charge of the recruitment this time. Yi Shiwen was slightly surprised. Wushang Duanlong could actually defeat a Dao validation expert. This was very rare. To be able to resist a Dao validation expert was already 1 in 10,000. Among these demigods who could resist a Dao validation expert, only 1 in 100 could defeat a Dao validation expert. It was enough to shock the world if it was said that Yi Shiwen was able to slaughter the gods as if it was just a game. The gods were eternal and immortal. Each of them was the beloved child of the heavens. They possessed unimaginable trump cards. It was absolutely impossible to slaughter them unless one had an absolute advantage. He killed the Duanlong family commander with absolute strength. Killing the Abyss Demon King and the Divine Union leader was more or less a trick. They could not be considered to be in their peak condition. Otherwise, their great battle back then would have been earth-shattering. This time, our Duanlong family thanks everyone for coming to help us. Anyone who came to help will be rewarded handsomely, Duanlong Wushang said. The crowd was in an uproar. They were all here to participate in the selection this time, and the best among them and the final winner would join the geniuses of the Duanlong clan to fight against the peerless geniuses of the Equipment Sovereign Pavilion. The Duanlong clan wanted to protect the Broken Dragon Stone, so they didn't think too much about it. Other than the benefits of the Duanlong clan, they also wanted to fight against the experts of the Equipment Sovereign Pavilion. All of them were peerless geniuses, and none of them would admit that they were inferior to others. Once they were able to defeat the geniuses of the Weapon Emperor Pavilion, it would be sufficient for them to become famous in the world. Waves of tyrannical aura were released without any concealment. Many of them were existences comparable to those who had proven their Tao. There were even some who had hidden their trump cards and had terrifying combat prowess. It was not hard to imagine how intense the upcoming battle would be. Once you are selected, you will become the representative of our Duanlong clan. Regardless of success or failure, our Duanlong clan will open the Broken Dragon Pond. I believe everyone has a certain understanding of the Broken Dragon Pond. This is one of the places where His Majesty the Equipment Emperor refined tools. If everyone can comprehend some of His Majesty the Equipment Emperor's Tao, it can be considered that we did not open it in vain. Duanlong Wushang said. Many geniuses looked very calm. Obviously, they had already received the news from the inside. Probably only Yi Shiwen hadn't heard of it. I won't say too much nonsense. Everyone, come with me and enter from the transmission array on the right. I hope you don't force yourselves, because this place has set up a barrier based on strength. If you don't have enough strength to force your way in and something happens, our Duanlong clan will not be responsible. After Duanlong Wushang finished speaking, he directly walked into the transmission array on the right and was transported away with a swoosh. At this time, everyone followed one after another. Yi Shiwen was also mixed in the crowd. Sure enough, some people overestimated themselves and were crushed into pieces on the spot by the terrible power contained in the transmission array. Yi Shiwen was also secretly speechless. Shi Mu and Ling Fei followed the flow of people and squeezed into the transmission array. They suddenly felt an enormous pressure crushing down on them and forcing them into their bodies. In fact, it seemed as if their bodies would explode on the spot. However, he only overflowed a little bit of divinity, and this pressure was eliminated. Ling Fei didn't seem to care at all. This pressure was eliminated by the mysterious instrument in her body. Their vision blurred, and they appeared in a subspace. In the center of this subspace, 10 incomparably huge arenas were floating in midair, and exuding soft rays of light. And there were floating thrones in this subspace. Some tyrannical figures were sitting on the thrones. Their auras were crushing in all directions, as if they were the rulers of the world. Yi Shiwen followed the crowd and walked into a public square. Ling Fei looked around excitedly, as if she had never seen such a selection before. And Yi Shiwen immediately swept his divine senses into the thrones. Although the thrones were hidden in a deeper layer of space, and it was impossible to reach those thrones by flying normally for a lifetime, but who was Yi Shiwen? For him, this was not a problem at all. Almost in an instant, he had already swept his divine senses. He found that the figures on these thrones were almost all Tao-confirming experts of the Duanlong clan. Many of them had profound martial power to an unimaginable degree. The people who came this time are not bad. Although it's a last-minute decision, these people are indeed geniuses. Even if not everyone can represent our Duanlong clan in this martial arts competition with the Tool Emperor Pavilion, we can still recruit the others. Our Duanlong clan has always despised such geniuses, and never despised having too many. That's right. If our Duanlong clan wants to prosper for eternity, it's not enough to rely on our own clan members. We need to recruit more outstanding talents, and let them serve our Duanlong clan. However, these geniuses claim to be able to contend against Tao-confirming experts. After all, they aren't Tao-confirming experts. Among these people, I don't know how many of them can Tao-confirming expert. If they don't Tao-confirming experts, they will forever be ant. If they don't Tao-confirming experts, they will only have the strength of Tao-confirming experts. Only those who have Tao-confirming experts can play chess. Yi Shiwen remained calm and collected. His divine thoughts were hidden very deeply. Even these gods couldn't detect it. He mainly wanted to know himself and his enemy, and he would never be defeated. It turned out that the Duanlong clan had such a plan. No wonder they were willing to spend so much to cultivate top experts. He had long noticed that there were many geniuses. These were geniuses from outside, not to mention that the Duanlong clan must have cultivated a large number of geniuses themselves. However, he didn't care. Anyway, he had a card up his sleeve. Even if he encountered a master in the middle of the immortal level, he could still contend with them, let alone these who could contend with the existence of the righteous. He wanted to know more about the secrets of the Duanlong clan. Most importantly, what exactly was the origin of the broken dragon stone that made the Duanlong clan so nervous? Not to mention, the equipment's sovereign pavilion was so overbearing, wanting to seize the broken dragon stone. Suddenly, Yi Shiwen heard a few people's conversation. This time, we can only win and not lose. Otherwise, even the broken dragon stone will be taken away by the people of the Tool Emperor Pavilion. That is the foundation of our Duanlong clan. We can't allow any damage to it. Yes, our ancestors of the Duanlong clan have comprehended in front of the broken dragon stone. Nowadays, many of the martial arts of our Duanlong clan come from the broken dragon stone. We must not give up. The broken dragon stone actually had such an origin. Yi Shiwen's heart moved slightly. Dang! Another bell rang, and everyone's attention was focused on the void. The figure of Wu Shang appeared again. Countless laws appeared around his body, and his whole body was covered in golden light. These golden lights radiated out and formed a mass of clouds and mist. Among them, his various martial arts were changing rapidly. This Wu Shang was much more powerful than the great commander of the Duanlong clan that Yi Shiwen had encountered before. No wonder he was sent to preside over this selection. One must know that those who could participate in the selection were all peerless geniuses. Each and every one of them was arrogant and unruly. If there was no special means, how could they be suppressed? I know that some of you may know me, and some of you may not. Let me introduce myself. I am the Foreign Affairs Chief of the Duanlong clan, Wu Shang. You have given us face by coming to participate in the selection of our Duanlong clan. You are our guests. Broken Dragon Wushang slowly opened his mouth and said, "But before the selection begins, I still want to make it clear to all of you. I even have a good relationship with your ancestors, so I don't want you to die in vain. The selection this time is to be able to contend against the geniuses of the Equipment Emperor Pavilion. If you are not careful, you will die a tragic death. I will give you one more chance. It is not too late to withdraw now. If you do not choose to withdraw at that time, then regardless of whether you live or die, even your forces will not be able to find trouble with us." Wu Shang looked at the crowd and his voice was as calm as iron. He was expressionless. Everyone was silent. At this point, it was naturally impossible for anyone to choose to withdraw. Moreover, these people would never admit that they were inferior to others. Each and every one of them was a peerless genius who wanted to prove their Tao. Who would be inferior to others? Well, since no one wants to withdraw, then I announce that this selection begins now. Chapter 2255. It's finally starting. Haha, it's not easy for me to cultivate to a level comparable to Tao validation. Now is the time for me to make a name for myself. Who dares to compete with me? This time, I'll make sure he dies without a burial. It is said that there are only 3 places this time. We will select 10 people first. Then, we will fight against the Broken Dragon clan to select 3 people. Even if they are the geniuses of the Broken Dragon clan, they will die if they stand in front of me. Don't block the way, otherwise don't blame me for being rude." These people immediately whispered to each other, but gradually their anger began to grow. These people were usually more unruly than the other, more arrogant and despotic than the other. It could be said that they had their eyes on the top of their heads. Naturally, there would be friction between them, and no one was willing to admit defeat. In addition, they might already have personal grudges on normal days. At this time, they were even more unwilling to give in to each other. "All of you be quiet." Broken Dragon Wushang's words immediately made these people quiet. They could look down on the so-called famous people, but they had to submit to Broken Dragon Wushang because Broken Dragon Wushang's strength was far more tyrannical than them. "You take turns to come up and collect your lot. Then, you will fight in pairs. We will only recruit 10 people in the end." These people took turns to draw their lot. Yi Shiwen originally wanted to stop Ling Fei from drawing the lot, but Ling Fei rushed to draw the lot before him. She smiled at him, obviously not taking his words to heart. "Don't worry, these smelly fish and shrimps are far from hurting me." Ling Fei stood on her tiptoes, looking like an adult, patted Yi Shiwen's shoulder, and comforted him. Yi Shiwen did not know whether to laugh or cry. He did not know what to say. Soon, it was Yi Shiwen's turn to go up, and his opponent in the first round was actually Xue Tianyu. This was a coincidence. Just admit defeat. You're no match for me. Although I don't know how you got in here, you haven't even reached the peak of Myth Realm, and yet you're here to challenge me? I think you must be tired of living. Xue Tianyu did not try to kill him right from the start. Make your move. How will you know if I am your opponent without fighting? Yi Shiwen said lightly. Humph, I gave you face, but you don't want it. Xue Tianyu made his move in an instant, and a big hand pressed down directly towards Yi Shiwen. The world turned dark, and the vault of heaven suddenly cracked open. Boom! With a loud bang, it suddenly shattered. Yi Shiwen didn't give in at all. He took a step forward and clenched his fist. It transformed into the divine fist of redemption. The power of redemption passed through his body and transformed into a huge lord of redemption. Bang! Xue Tianyu was sent flying by Yi Shiwen's punch when the palm and fist collided. His body was constantly retreating in midair. There was an incomparable horror in his eyes. He couldn't believe that he was actually sent flying by a punch. Hey, you're actually fine. Yi Shiwen chuckled. He seemed a bit surprised, but in Xue Tianyu's eyes, this was simply mocking him. He was instantly enraged, and a fierce light burst out from his eyes. Looks like you're courting death. Yi Shiwen sneered, shrugged his shoulders and said, If you don't like it, then come and kill me. Go. Come on. Beat that idiot to death. Below the stage, Ling Fei's cheers resounded throughout the subspace without any scruples. Sure enough, Xue Tianyou's complexion became even more unsightly. This was a kind of provocation and a kind of contempt. How many years had it been since someone dared to despise him like this? He strode towards Yi Shiwen, and his eyes burst out with unimaginable light. The vault of heaven shattered wherever he passed. Go to hell! Xue Tianyu roared angrily, and his palm fell down. The entire universe lost its color, and it seemed as if there was only this palm in the world. Yi Shiwen didn't give in at all. He displayed the divine fist of redemption to the fullest extent and blasted towards Xue Tianyu. At the same time, his eye of redemption also burst out with the power of redemption and blasted towards Xue Tianyu. Boom! 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 An astonishing collision broke out between both sides. This battle attracted the attention of many people. Many people were watching the two of them. No matter who won or lost, they would inevitably have to fight each other in the end. Everything is illusory. Only I am eternal. Xue Tianyu roared, and the power that erupted from his palm soared into the sky. It was like the Milky Way flowing backwards, shaking the vault of heaven, and slammed towards Yi Shiwen fiercely. Divine fist of redemption. There's nothing in the world that can't be redeemed. Don't you admit defeat? Yi Shiwen blasted out a fist, and it was tit for tat with Xue Tianyu. He hadn't used his full strength yet. To be safe, he didn't use his strength of the middle immortal level. However, the peak of the early immortal level was enough to make him invincible. Boom! The two peerless martial arts collided directly, and it was simply a complete confrontation of martial arts rules. The fist momentum and palm shadows of both sides directly exploded, and even the Milky Way turned into dust. After just a few moves, Yi Shiwen had already figured out Xue Tianyou's strength. He didn't use too much strength. He only used his strength that was slightly stronger than Xue Tianyou's to completely suppress Xue Tianyu. Bang! The divine fist of redemption broke through Xue Tianyou's palm shadow and directly blasted into his chest. A big hole suddenly appeared in his chest. Xue Tianyu screamed and he wanted to struggle. Two rays of divine light of redemption shot out from Yi Shiwen's eyes, and his head directly exploded. He condensed his divine soul, and just as he condensed his head, Yi Shiwen stepped down again, and Xue Tianyou's head exploded again on the spot. Yi Shiwen continued to stomp on his head until Xue Tianyu had no energy. The head was one of the most essential parts of the body. Every time it was condensed, it would consume a lot of life force. How could it withstand Yi Shiwen's torment? Everyone could see that Yi Shiwen had completely gained the upper hand. This person's strength is so strong. Xue Tianyou's strength is not weak, and he is also an outstanding person in the peak of the demigod level. However, he is actually beaten up so badly, and he has no strength to fight back at all. How strong is this person's strength? Could it be that he has already achieved Tao validation? Impossible. The aura on his body is definitely not the aura of a person who has achieved Tao validation. Otherwise, he could have directly passed the selection and wouldn't have needed to waste time with these demigods. Many people's divine senses were intertwined, and they were completely shocked by Yi Shiwen. Even the craziest person hadn't thought that this would be the result. Compared to Yi Shiwen, who had an unknown origin, Xue Tianyu was an existence who had already made a name for himself. Yi Shiwen easily won the battle, and he jumped off the stage. He glanced around, and found that there were more than 50 people present. In other words, each person only needed to defeat 4 other people in order to enter the list of 10 people. Not long after he came down, it was Ling Fei's turn to fight. The next battle is between Lei Jingqi and Charming Yiksha. Charming Yiksha was Ling Fei's alias this time, and Yi Shiwen's alias was Deadly Scholar. Although it was only an alias, but fortunately, the Broken Dragon clan wasn't strict in this aspect. Although they wanted to recruit some geniuses, their main purpose was to recruit people to fight against the Tool Emperor Pavilion. Strength was the most fundamental of all, and other things didn't need to be considered. According to Ling Fei, she had chosen such a strange name to echo the name of Yi Shiwen's Deadly Scholar. Charming Yiksha is here to seek advice. Ling Fei flew onto the stage and cupped her hands in obeisance. She had an imposing appearance. Ha 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 ha, little girl, this isn't a place where you can play. This Lei Jingqi was also a thunder beast. He had transformed into a human form, but he still maintained the form of a beast. However, he was different from the thunder beast that Yi Shiwen had killed before. He had been cultivating in the Tool Emperor Heaven for a long time, and had absorbed innumerable treasured energies. So, his entire body was emitting a kind of treasure light. Cut the crap, Ling Fei rolled her eyes and said. Her small face looked somewhat angry. It seemed that she was being looked down upon. Then, don't blame me for being impolite. This thunder beast took a step, and arrived in front of Ling Fei in an instant. He grabbed the void with his hand, and the thunder and lightning took the form of a long blade. Then, he chopped down. He had already attacked before his voice had even faded. He clearly wanted to kill Ling Fei first. He didn't even hesitate to use a sneak attack. Despicable! Ling Fei shouted in a delicate voice. However, her hands didn't slow down in the slightest. She suddenly released the aura from her body, and an incomparably terrifying aura was released from the top of her head. It took the form of layers of clouds, and spread out in all directions. A long sword suddenly appeared in her hand. It seemed as if the Milky Way was sliding down from the sky. It slashed out a gray sword light, and went straight towards the saber light of the Thunder Beast. Bang! Both sides fiercely collided. Ling Fei had attacked later, but she had arrived first. She wasn't slow in the slightest. The long sword in her hand erupted with an astonishing sword light. Ling Fei's sword technique was also astonishingly tyrannical. Bang! The Thunder Beast's long thunder and lightning saber shattered on the spot after only one collision. It turned into fragments and flew away. What's that sword? Is it a divine tool? How can it be so powerful? Everyone looked at the sword in Ling Fei's hand in succession. It was dark gray in color. It was suffused with a kind of gloomy radiance under the sunlight. Everyone reacted in a flash. This sword was undoubtedly a divine tool since it could chop off the Thunder Beast's long saber that contained the law of thunder and lightning. After all, what else could sever the law apart from a divine tool? Everyone held their breaths in succession. Where did this girl come from? She could casually take out a divine tool. One must know that not everyone could possess a divine tool even if they were as strong as them. You look so ugly. Get lost. Ling Fei shouted in a delicate manner. She pointed her sword towards the Thunder Beast. Chapter 2256. The Thunder Beast staggered and fell down from the stage. Ugly? This is an extraordinary shame and humiliation. He was incomparably angry. The thunderbolts in the ninth heaven had been drawn down by him, and had come crashing down with a loud rumble. They had weaved into a network of thunderbolts, and had bombarded Ling Fei under his guidance. He didn't have any tender feelings for the fairer sex anymore. He had already flown into a rage out of humiliation, and wanted to kill Ling Fei. An incomparably huge, ominous beast faintly appeared on his body. Its head reached the sky, and its feet stepped on the ground. It had overturned the stars, and its roar was the best in the universe. He had almost transformed into his original form. Many people were watching from afar. They felt as if their aura was being pulled away. They felt as if they were going to vomit. Whoosh! Ling Fei took a step forward. Her entire body seemed as if it was dancing. It was extremely graceful. Her pace was astonishing. She crossed the void, and arrived in front of the thunder beast. The sword in her hand chopped through the thunder net, and bombarded the thunder beast's body like a hot knife through butter. Bang! The thunder beast let out a muffled groan. Its huge body was overturned. A dreadful sword energy wreaked havoc in its body, and it was sent flying upside down. Roar! I won't let you have an easy time even if I die. An unimaginable ominous glint flashed in the thunder beast's eyes. He opened his mouth, and gathered the strength of his entire body. Then, a thunderbolt energy cannon rumbled out, and swept across half of the world. Yi Shiwen's heart tightened. He was about to rush onto the stage. However, he suddenly relaxed. The audience also cried out in alarm. Many people could see that the counterattack of this thunder beast before its death wasn't simple. However, the result left them completely dumbfounded. The counterattack of this thunder beast before its death could seriously injure even a Dao-confirming expert if he wasn't careful. However, everyone clearly saw that the energy cannon had been intercepted 3 meters in front of Ling Fei. A mysterious power had blocked in front of her. Bang! The thunder beast ferociously hit the ground, and spurted out a mouthful of blood. It wasn't clear whether it was because he was angry or because he had been seriously injured. This is bullying. There's a divine tool for offense and a divine tool for defense. What's the point of fighting? There's no point in fighting. F***ck. At this moment, even the most well-rested people could not help but blurt out. God artifacts were not unattainable for supreme prodigies like them, but those who could possess them were few and far between. Most of them were formed from God artifact. Ling Fei had an offensive divine tool and a defensive divine tool. She was simply a bully. Where did this charming yaksha come from? Which big shot's disciple is she? An expert from the Duanlong clan asked from the throne. Even in the Duanlong clan, there was no time when they were so extravagant as to give 2 divine artifacts to a disciple to fool around. I don't know. I've never seen this martial art before, so I'm not too sure. But no matter what, the more experts there are, the better. As for the unknown origin, it won't be too late to investigate it when we want to rope her in. Everyone looked at Ling Fei with an obedient look in their eyes. It was no wonder that the thunder beast had vomited blood. How could he not vomit blood after encountering such an opponent? What's called a local tyrant? This is a local tyrant. He doesn't play with profound martial art. He doesn't play with exquisite moves. He loves to bully you with divine tools. What can you do? You can also use divine tools if you have the ability. Yi Shiwen was slightly startled. Ling Fei arrived in front of him, along with a burst of fragrant wind. She proudly raised her head, looked at Yi Shiwen, and said, "How is it? I'm awesome, right? You've underestimated me. It's your family's divine tools that are awesome. But don't flaunt your wealth. You've revealed 2 divine tools now. So, I'm afraid that some people will have designs on you." Yi Shiwen reminded. "What's there to be afraid of? I'll kill whoever dares to come. Moreover, aren't you here? Bite whoever doesn't have eyes for me." Ling Fei grinned and said. Yi Shiwen's face was full of black lines. In fact, the surrounding experts who had been paying attention to this side were also embarrassed at this time. This grand aunt wasn't someone to be trifled with. Her strength wasn't weak. Moreover, she had divine tools in her hands. Let alone the fact that she was comparable to a Dao-confirming expert, even a genuine god would be beaten to a pulp by her. Ling Fei was like this. She didn't care at all. You can bite me if you don't accept it. Otherwise, I'll make Yi Shiwen bite you. Yi Shiwen felt that divine senses had swept over both of them. His expression turned cold. He wouldn't mind killing someone to establish his prestige if some blind guy came knocking on his door. After Ling Fei, there were more than a dozen fierce battles. Each of them was exciting. These were the best among the demigods. Many of them had battle prowess comparable to a Tao-confirming expert. They were extraordinary, and ordinary people couldn't deal with them. All kinds of laws emerged. Magical martial arts were displayed one after another. Yi Shiwen also felt that it was an eye-opener. Many of the battles could be said to be several times more intense than the battles of Tao-confirming experts. If it wasn't for the reinforcement of the many tactical formations, it would have been destroyed. An ordinary subspace couldn't withstand the attacks of a Tao-confirming expert. Next, 8 Paths Sex Zhang Yaoyang, deadly scholar. Finally, it was Yi Shiwen's turn again. He took a big stride and flew directly to the arena. His opponent was already waiting for him. I'm afraid this deadly scholar won't have much luck. I've seen 8 Paths Sex Zhang Yaoyang in the past. He fought against a god with his bare hand. Now, I don't know how tyrannical he has become. It's completely unimaginable. That might not be the case. Zhang Yaoyang might be powerful, but this deadly scholar isn't that easy to deal with either. Xue Tianyu was considered pretty good previously, but in the end, he was beaten like a stray dog. Regardless, these two aren't ordinary people. The laws of the demigods have completely manifested on their bodies. They've triggered a storm of laws. In any case, it'd be best if both of them get seriously injured. There are only 10 slots in total. It's pitifully small. Everyone was discussing spiritedly under the arena. Many people felt that it would be a pity if they didn't finish the book. This 8 Paths Sex Zhang Yaoyang was already famous and extraordinary. Deadly scholar, what's your relationship with that charming Yiksha? She actually has 2 divine tools. This isn't something she should have. How about this? I won't kill you today if you can convince her to give me one of her divine tools. How about it? Zhang Yaoyang took a step forward and glanced at Ling Fei. There was a hint of greed in his eyes. It was obvious that he coveted the divine tools in Ling Fei's hands. He was extremely jealous in his heart. Even a genius like him didn't have a divine tool. Why did this little girl have one? Moreover, she had 2 divine tools. It was like pouring salt on his wound. Idiot! Yi Shiwen spat out these 2 words coldly. He looked at 8 Paths Sex Zhang Yaoyang with contempt. Damn it! How dare you look down on me? Zhang Yaoyang was furious. Yi Shiwen's gaze had deeply pierced his self-esteem. His background couldn't be compared to these top-notch geniuses. Hence, he had always felt inferior. Now that he was being looked down upon by Yi Shiwen, it was tantamount to him exploding all of a sudden. Flaunt your prowess. He took a step forward. Endless energy surged out from under his feet. It rolled out in all directions. He clenched his 5 fingers into a fist and blasted it towards Yi Shiwen. The entire firmament of the universe slightly swayed along with his fist in tension. It seemed as if it wanted to echo his fist in tension. He had blasted out a Tao diagram with one punch. His strength couldn't be underestimated. Many people who saw this fist path Tao diagram felt nauseous on the spot. They were dignified peak demigods, and yet they had such a feeling. From this, one could imagine just how tyrannical this Tao diagram was. Even the masters of the Duanlong family, who sat high above on their thrones, all looked over. This Tao diagram was indeed extraordinary. Die. The fist pressure crushed down and fell on Yi Shiwen's body. It seemed as if it had blasted into a sea. It formed unimaginable waves. The divinities on Yi Shiwen's body automatically bounced back. Zhang Yaoyang's fist hadn't even hit Yi Shiwen's body when it had already sunk into the endless sea of divinities. What? Zhang Yaoyang was a little dumbfounded. He had used his full strength to severely injure a god. What was going on with this person in front of him? He couldn't even move forward. Only then did Yi Shiwen move slowly. He raised his arm and slapped out. Slap! An incomparably crisp sound of a slap resounded through the entire space. But what followed was Zhang Yaoyang's entire head that was about to split open. He was held back by Yi Shiwen's divinities, and couldn't move freely. He could only watch as this slap fell on his face. His eyes were incomparably resentful. This was a slap in the face. It was more humiliating than anything else. This was a humiliation he had never felt before. He wanted revenge. His cultivation was raised to the peak. His murderous aura shook the entire world. Although he wasn't a god, he was already a demigod. When a demigod was angry, the earth shook and the mountains shook. Slap! Another big slap completely interrupted his momentum. He immediately became listless. The other half of his face was almost split open. Slap! 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 Yi Shiwen didn't give him a chance to explode at all. He directly slapped him over 100 times until he was dizzy. How could this be? How could this be? Many people in the audience were silent. They didn't dare to make a sound. This was not as simple as defeating Zhang Yaoyang. He was slapped more than 100 times in public. It was simply a humiliation. Yes, this was indeed a humiliation. Even if Xue Tianyu was not Yi Shiwen's opponent before, he had never suffered such an ugly humiliation. After a long time, Yi Shiwen said, "Next time, if I see you having any ideas about her, I will pinch you to death." Everyone understood why Zhang Yaoyang would suffer such humiliation. Yi Shiwen was killing the chicken to warn the monkey. Chapter 2257. Everyone could see that Yi Shiwen was punishing the chicken to warn the monkeys. He was warning all the guys who had designs on Ling Fei's divine tool that they shouldn't mess around. Everyone looked at Zhang Yaoyang's incomparably miserable appearance, and couldn't help but feel a chill down their spines. Being defeated wasn't a big deal, but being humiliated in such a humiliating manner was the truly terrifying part. If they were to be slapped hundreds of times in the face like Zhang Yaoyang, how would they have the face to see others in the future? Ling Fei was the only one present. Her face was completely red, and she was shouting excitedly. She looked as if she was watching a good show. This Yi Shiwen is so powerful. I didn't expect him to be a dark horse. Someone on the throne said. Although there were 10 quotas this time, and each quota represented countless rewards, it still depended on who was stronger in the end. Therefore, the competition between the big shots behind the scenes wasn't that serious. The talents selected this time had to fight with the Royal Tool Pavilion. If they couldn't defeat the Royal Tool Pavilion, then the consequences would be unimaginable. The Broken Dragon Stone would also become the Royal Tool Pavilion's possession. It was impossible for the Duanlong clan to not feel pressured in the face of such a colossus. If the Royal Tool Pavilion didn't want to suffer heavy casualties, they would have already attacked. The Duanlong clan also didn't want to have a conflict with the Royal Tool Pavilion. Although the Duanlong clan was prosperous, there was still a huge gap between them and the Royal Tool Pavilion. The most important thing is if we can't find someone who can compete with Feng Qingji. Many people turned their attention towards Yi Shiwen. They were pondering in their hearts whether they should investigate this deadly scholar's background, and then rope him into their faction. The Duanlong clan naturally had the surname Duanlong. However, there were also many foreign experts. They were also a very important supplement. For these people who had already proved their Tao, they naturally knew how big the gap was between those who had proved their Tao and those who hadn't. Those who hadn't proved their Tao were just a group of ants in their eyes. There was no exception even if the ants were stronger. And among these people, Yi Shiwen seemed to be the most promising existence to prove his Tao. These people are really lucky this time. In order to fight against Feng Qingji, they have to be at the Tao confirming realm. However, our Duanlong clan doesn't have a single Tao confirming realm disciple at this age. That's why we have no choice but to rope in some people from the outside, give them opportunities, give them resources, and let them have the chance to step into the Tao confirming realm and be of use to us. Yeah, we didn't have such a good opportunity back then. Yi Shiwen's divine sense was lurking, and he had been paying attention to this side. At present, his eyes lit up. These deities might not have thought that someone would dare to be so audacious to this extent. Yi Shiwen had killed the Devil Lord of the Abyss, and had broken the Devil barrier in his heart. In a strict sense, he had already cleared all the obstacles to the Tao confirmation. The only thing he lacked was the accumulation of power. Unless he had a fortuitous encounter, it would take him hundreds of years to accumulate power. Now that he was in the Weapon Emperor Heaven, it was impossible for him to return to the deification abyss. This was a good opportunity. Originally, he just came to watch, and more to accompany Ling Fei's nonsense. Now Yi Shiwen had to win. But it's not so easy to prove the Tao, especially since there's not much time left for them. Someone snorted. The battle was still going on fiercely. Soon, there were only 10 people left. Yi Shiwen also swept all the way, and there was no opponent at all. Since he had made up his mind to take advantage of the Duanlong clan's support, Yi Shiwen didn't mind performing better. These people were called Heaven's Pride, but they were only comparable to the initial stage of the immortal realm. Yi Shiwen didn't even fall into a disadvantageous position even if he fought against the intermediate stage of the immortal realm. His combat power was a whole realm higher than them, so the situation was naturally completely different. Yi Shiwen swept all the way, and there was no one who could withstand 10 moves from Yi Shiwen. Therefore, Yi Shiwen quickly turned from a dark horse to a popular candidate in this selection. If it wasn't for the fact that he had to fight with the experts selected from the internal selection of the Duanlong clan, perhaps the popularity would be completely different. Congratulations on passing the selection, but I hope that you understand that this is just the beginning, and not the real end. After the battle between the internal experts of the Duanlong clan, we will choose 3 people from the 20 people to represent the Duanlong clan in the final battle against the Weapon Emperor Pavilion. I hope that you all will do your best, and don't take it lightly. However, even if you can't become one of the 3 people, in order to thank everyone for coming to help, the Duanlong clan will not be stingy. Duanlong Wushang said directly. The battle will start tomorrow. I will arrange for everyone to go and rest first. Yi Shiwen, I also passed. Who told you to look down on me? Ling Fei giggled as she arrived in front of Yi Shiwen. She then said in a proud manner. No one could block her attack by relying on her all-conquering treasured sword. So, no one could stand in front of her divine tool and suffer a crushing defeat. Although some people secretly criticized Ling Fei for only relying on the power of the divine tool to sweep all the way, Ling Fei didn't care at all. He had a bite me if you don't accept it look on his face, which made those people completely speechless. Moreover, even if they weren't afraid of Ling Fei, they had to be afraid of Yi Shiwen. Yi Shiwen's strength was obviously stronger than them by more than an entire realm. He had almost swept away everyone. No one wanted to offend him. They had also seen how Zhang Yaoyang had been humiliated in public. If the same thing happened to them, they would really have no face to see anyone. You continue to show off? Yi Shiwen said rather helplessly. Just when everyone was preparing to leave and go to the place that the Duanlong clan had prepared for them to stay, several figures suddenly flew out from the sky. Each of them had an unimaginably terrifying aura. Any one of them could be said to be a peerless hero with earth-shattering strength. Yi Shiwen wrinkled his brows. These people immediately flew down from the sky. The outstanding disciples of the Duanlong clan have come. There was a commotion in the crowd. In this area, there was no doubt that the Duanlong clan was the real local tyrant. They could decide the life and death of everyone, and they were nothing in front of the disciples of the Duanlong clan. However, what did these disciples of the Duanlong clan want to do by coming here at this time? I heard that you have already finished the competition. In my opinion, there is no need to look for you. Could it be that you people are stronger than the experts of our Duanlong clan? Who among you is the life-snatching scholar? I heard that he is quite strong. Let me have a taste of his strength. At this time, a figure flew out from among the few figures. He was approximately 30 years old. His entire body was bursting with the aura of a treasure. He was an incomparably tyrannical treasure demon. Everyone clenched their fists. Their pride was trampled under the foot of this guy without hesitation. Although these experts of the Duanlong clan were asking for a beating, their strength was more tyrannical than the previous one. They could not do anything about it. This is Duanlong Wuchuan, one of the Rising Heavens pride experts of the Duanlong clan. In less than a few thousand years, he has already cultivated to the peak of the demigod realm. Among the experts of this generation, he is most likely to become a Tao-confirming expert. Someone immediately recognized the origin of this person. There was another commotion in the crowd. Although many people had not seen Duanlong Wuchuan before, they had heard of his name. Although everyone was indignant, their eyes uniformly looked at Yi Shiwen. Although they were in a competitive relationship with Yi Shiwen before, they were now comrades in the same trench. Seeing that the situation had changed, even the Tao-confirming experts of the Duanlong clan, who were sitting on the high and mighty thrones, also stayed back. It seemed that they wanted to see how good this dark horse Yi Shiwen was. I didn't expect Duanlong Wuchuan to be the first to attack. This kid has always been reckless. This life-stealing scholar is troublesome. This is not a big trouble. If even Duanlong Wuchuan can't deal with this life-stealing scholar, there is no value in cultivating him. That's true. I hope he can hold on for a few more rounds. Although they were more optimistic about Yi Shiwen, these experts of the Duanlong clan had incomparable confidence in the experts cultivated by their own clan. You are the life-stealing scholar. Interesting. Take a punch from me first. Duanlong Wuchuan said and attacked without the slightest scruple. He did not even put these people in his eyes. In his opinion, this selection was just a waste of time. If even the people of the Duanlong clan were not a match for him, what was the use of relying on a few outsiders? Boom! This punch directly triggered the crazy rotation of the world's vitality, forming a terrible cyclone, and blasted towards Yi Shiwen from the sky. In the void, a torrent appeared, and a huge crack was directly torn. This crack revealed a chaotic aura, and everywhere was full of killing intent. It blasted towards Yi Shiwen's direction. The sky shattered, and the sun and moon lost their light. This terrifying turbulence wrapped everyone in it, so everyone in the entire space could feel this amazing punch. His profound martial power had almost reached a shocking level. Even those Heaven's Pride experts from the outside were shocked at this moment. This Duanlong Wuchuan was too strong. They all clenched their fists. Was the gap between them really that big? They were all at the peak of the demigod realm, comparable to the Tao validation, but their martial power was too far apart. The foundation of the Duanlong clan was too terrifying, and the experts cultivated by them were also far beyond the ordinary. In particular, this Duanlong Wuchuan was not the most tyrannical existence in the Duanlong clan. His foundation was really unimaginably deep. Everyone circulated their martial power, hoping not to be accidentally injured. Everyone retreated, not daring to take it head-on. One could imagine how terrifying the power of this move was. Chapter 2258. Is he crazy? He's going to kill. Someone exclaimed. Duanlong Wuchuan was going to kill. In many people's eyes, he was already crazy. No matter what, they were here to help. Was Duanlong Wuchuan going to kill them all in one fell swoop? This move is so strong. I'm afraid even a real deity can't withstand such a move. Although Duanlong Wuchuan is arrogant and despotic, he is indeed qualified. With such strength, he can be ranked among the best among the demigods. What a powerful punch! Duanlong Wuchuan is not famous for his fist technique. Duanlong Wuchuan must have had some other fortuitous encounter to have such an amazing fist technique cultivation. Look at Duanlong Wuchuan's chi. It's so thick that it's hard to imagine. He's younger than me by a few hundred years, but his skill is better than many old monsters. Duan Long Wukwen really has a lot of resources. They've spared no effort to cultivate such a genius. Everyone quickly took turns to talk, but at the same time, they all retreated, not wanting to be involved. They also knew that Duan Long Wukwen was here to find trouble with Yi Shiwen. Although it was to humiliate them, they did not want to get involved so easily. In terms of fist techniques, you're still far from it. Look at my divine fist of salvation. Suddenly, Yi Shiwen went against the flow of this endless turbulence. He took a step forward, clenched his 5 fingers into a fist, and released the power of redemption from his whole body. Countless power of redemption covered his body, making him look like a tyrannical lord of redemption. Boom! His punch was like a star, piercing through the heavens and the earth, shooting straight into the sky, and blasting into the boundless turbulence. Broken Dragon Wuchuan's punch exploded on the spot. Bang! Duan Long Wukwen's punch was forced clean on the spot, and then the 2 fists directly collided in the air. Crack! Only a crisp sound of bones breaking could be heard. Duan Long Wukwen's entire arm was hit, and blood splattered everywhere. His muscles exploded, and golden blood splashed out. Just one punch from Yi Shiwen, and he was seriously injured. Yi Shiwen did not show mercy. He went further and blasted another punch, hitting Duan Long Wukwen's chest, directly blasting a huge bloody hole. Duan Long Wuchuan was sent flying, screaming miserably as he clutched his chest and slammed heavily into the ground. Who do you think you are? You're just a piece of trash that can't even withstand a single blow. I don't want to cause trouble, but if you want to provoke me, feel free to try. Although Yi Shiwen's words were directed at Duan Long Wuchuan, his eyes swept over the remaining disciples of the Duan Long clan. Duan Long Wuchuan had already been defeated, so he didn't put him in his eyes. He had already become a cripple. The remaining disciples of the Duanlong clan suddenly became furious. This was a blatant warning from Yi Shiwen. Moreover, it was from those so-called foreign geniuses whom they had always looked down upon. However, they weren't fools. They didn't rush forward because they knew very well what it meant. Broken Dragon Powerless wasn't weak, but he couldn't even block a single punch. This life-stealing scholar before them was strong. Very, very strong. His strength had far exceeded their expectations. What kind of fist technique was that just now? How could it be so tyrannical? At that moment, I felt that my whole body was filled with sin and I needed redemption. What a powerful fist technique! I originally thought that even if he was strong, it would be difficult to compare with the elite disciples of the Duanlong clan. Now, it seems that those elite disciples are nothing compared to him. That's right. What elite disciples of the Duanlong clan? I think they're just SOSO. Many people were shouting as if they wanted the world to be in chaos. They couldn't take revenge after being humiliated by the disciples of the Duanlong clan. Now that they saw them being humiliated, they were naturally in a good mood. However, they still couldn't believe their own eyes. Even if Duan Long Wukwen was going to lose to Yi Shiwen, he wouldn't lose so easily. Embarrassing, too embarrassing. It seems that this life-stealing scholar is strong, more tyrannical than expected. But what kind of fist technique is he practicing? Why haven't I seen it before? It seems that this world is too vast. There's actually a fist technique that I don't know about. Not bad. That punch just now even made me feel threatened. This life-stealing scholar's fist technique is pretty good. It's powerful. Let's see if we can rope him in and get him to hand over that fist technique. Our Duanlong clan doesn't have any powerful fist technique. This is also a big weakness. The experts on the thrones also started to discuss among themselves. That punch was an eye-opener for them. They could look down on the strength of those demigods, but they couldn't look down on the inheritance of those demigods. There were many demigod inheritances that were more powerful than they had imagined. Some of them were even the disciples of the legendary kings. Yi Shiwen glanced at the experts of the Duanlong clan indifferently. The corner of his mouth twitched slightly. If they weren't in the territory of the Duanlong clan, he would have been able to kill these experts with just one punch. Duanlong Wuquan had almost reached the peak of the early stage of the Good Sage realm. However, it was still far from enough in front of Yi Shiwen. "Haha, I knew you could do it. Teach those guys a lesson." Ling Fei clenched her small fists. She opened her mouth wide and laughed without a care for her image. She put her hands on her hips and looked up to the sky as she laughed. She looked very arrogant. However, this arrogant action of hers looked very cute no matter how one looked at it. The remaining young experts of the Duanlong clan looked even more gloomy. Ling Fei's words were clearly adding fuel to the fire. They were burning with anger, but they couldn't do anything about it. Life-stealing scholar, don't be too proud. Don't think that this is the real strength of our Duanlong clan. One of the experts of the Duanlong clan roared. Of course, I don't think that the dignified Duanlong clan only has such rotten fish and shrimp. However, you guys are still far from being able to cause trouble for me. Yi Shiwen took Ling Fei in his arms and walked out of the microcosm. Ling Fei's small face turned red. However, she surprisingly didn't cause trouble with Yi Shiwen this time. Instead, she was as obedient as a kitten. The experts of the Duanlong clan gritted their teeth. Their eyes were almost spewing fire. They couldn't wait to swallow this arrogant guy in front of them. Of course, they would never think that Yi Shiwen wouldn't have bothered with them if they hadn't gone to cause trouble for him. It didn't matter if they thought that Yi Shiwen was arrogant or domineering. He didn't care at all. He was determined to get the quota for this selection. This was related to whether he could go one step further. It was the final sprint for the final Dao confirmation. Seeing that Yi Shiwen had left, everyone left one after another. Even those geniuses of the Duanlong clan could only leave angrily. They didn't have the guts to cause trouble for Yi Shiwen. After defeating Broken Dragon powerless in a single battle, the name of the life-stealing scholar had spread far and wide. Many people started to feel suspicious. Just who in the world was this life-stealing scholar? Why hadn't they heard of him before? However, they weren't too suspicious. The weapon Emperor Heaven was simply too big. Even they didn't know how many experts there were within it. Especially now that the Duanlong clan had issued a recruitment notice. It was very normal for a large number of experts to come. After defeating Duanlong Wuquan in one move, the danger level of Yi Shiwen in many people's hearts soared. In many people's eyes, he was almost the favorite for the final victory. Yi Shiwen spent the night in closed-door cultivation. Now, he couldn't wait to seize every minute and every second to cultivate. He didn't even move. In the mansion prepared for him by the Duanlong clan, he didn't move at all. Yi Shiwen, Yi Shiwen. Early in the morning, Yi Shiwen was pulled out of the state of cultivation by Ling Fei. "What's wrong?" Yi Shiwen opened his eyes and looked at Ling Fei's excited face. "Let me tell you. I went out early in the morning to inquire about the experts that the Duanlong clan might send this time." Ling Fei looked like she wanted to take credit for it. "Oh," Yi Shiwen replied with a no. Sure enough, Ling Fei's bright red little mouth pouted. She then said in a rather unhappy manner, "Hey, I went out to inquire because of you. Don't you care?" Yi Shiwen smiled. Ling Fei was like a child who hadn't grown up yet in his eyes. She had cultivated to the peak of the demigod realm, and still retained such a childish heart. It was a miracle in itself. However, this pure and innocent heart wasn't necessarily the most fundamental reason for rapid cultivation. "What are you laughing at?" Ling Fei looked at Yi Shiwen with an unfriendly expression. "Well, who are they?" Yi Shiwen asked with a smile. Ling Fei immediately threw her unhappiness to the back of her mind and said, "Let me tell you. Among the people of the Duanlong clan, besides the trash Duanlong Wuquan, there are two people worth paying attention to." After Duanlong Wuquan was defeated by Yi Shiwen, Ling Fei's evaluation of him was that he was a useless trash. He couldn't even resist one move from Yi Shiwen. This made Yi Shiwen feel quite helpless. The power of his punch was terrifying. Could even destroy a galaxy. There was probably no one who could resist it. At least, there shouldn't be such a person among the peak of the demigod realm. One of them is Duanlong Wuyu. This person is known as the strongest expert of this generation of the Duanlong clan. He is almost invincible. It is said that he had crossed the calamity not long ago. It can be said that he is the leader of the younger generation, Ling Fei said. Yi Shiwen nodded. It seemed that Ling Fei had put in the effort to collect information. It wasn't just for fun. The others are just SOSO. You can beat them casually. You don't need to care about them, Ling Fei said with a smile. Didn't you say that there is another one? Chapter 2259. The other one is the second son of the Duanlong clan, Duanlong Wu Ming. If you have the chance to meet him, help me beat him up. Ling Fei clenched her small fist and said with a frown. It seems that he has offended you, Yi Shiwen said with a chuckle. Yes, Ling Fei said seriously with a straight face. All right, then beat him up. Yi Shiwen laughed and got up to rush to the final selection venue. This time, the Duanlong clan would send 10 people to compete with the 10 people recruited from outside. Finally, 10 people would be selected. The 20 experts arrived very quickly and were naturally divided into 2 sides and 2 rows. The existence of 20 experts at the peak of the myth level, comparable to the Masters of Tao confirmation level, solidified the space of the entire universe. In the face of such power, it was difficult for any space to withstand. The murderous intention was boundless. They were all competitors. Yi Shiwen stood in the crowd. Yesterday, he had severely injured Duanlong Wu Ming with a single punch, which instantly made him the focus of everyone's attention. Regardless of whether it was the Duanlong clan or the experts outside, they all had a considerable amount of attention on him. Wave after wave of pressure hit him in the face, unexpectedly wanting him to collapse his mind before the battle began. Yi Shiwen sneered, calm and composed. With the enlightening mind ancient tree, this kind of coercion was not a problem for him. And his gaze was on a slender and strong figure. His black hair was loose, and his whole body was full of golden treasure energy like a pillar supporting the sky. It pierced through the sky, covering the sky and the earth, surging violently. Not to mention the experts from outside, even the people from the Duanlong clan were not willing to approach him. He was like a ferocious beast, completely above everyone else. The blood in his body was surging, as if there was a sonorous sound. Duanlong Wu Yu. As his name suggested, his whole person looked abnormally cold. He seemed to have no desires like a robot. In many people's rumors, among the 3 people, Duanlong Wu Yu was going to be selected internally. This selection was not because he had used any connections or opened any back door. On the contrary, it was because his strength was too strong, so strong that people felt that it was reasonable for him to be selected internally. On the contrary, if he were to fight with others, it would be the biggest injustice to others. The entire place was silent. The 20 people from both sides were facing each other. It looked like they would start fighting at any moment. You're that fatal scholar? Finally, someone broke the silence. It was a handsome young man dressed in a magnificent robe. He held a folding fan in his hand. He finally withdrew his gaze from Ling Fei's body and looked towards Yi Shiwen. There was some doubt in his eyes. He clearly felt that the woman in front of him gave him a familiar feeling, as if he had seen her somewhere before. Otherwise, he wouldn't have stared at her for so long. He kept staring at Ling Fei until she became impatient. However, she couldn't speak. Yi Shiwen had forbidden her to speak in order to prevent her from giving herself away. Their appearance could be disguised, but their words and actions could be easily exposed. It didn't matter if he had never shown his face. However, Ling Fei had a criminal record. So, she naturally had to be cautious. "Who are you?" Yi Shiwen crossed his arms and said without looking at the opposite party. The person he had transformed into now was a young genius who showed off his abilities. Naturally, his words and actions had to be overbearing and unyielding. That person suddenly felt as if he had punched into cotton. He had deliberately provoked Yi Shiwen, but Yi Shiwen didn't even know who he was. The key was to look at Yi Shiwen's eyes. He really didn't know who he was. This made him even more furious than deliberately ignoring him. He was simply ignorant, a frog at the bottom of a well, and a summer insect couldn't talk about ice. Ling Fei almost couldn't help but laugh. She had already shown Yi Shiwen the portrait of this person in front of her. How could he not recognize him? This person was the second son of the Duanlong clan's current clan master, Duanlong Wu Ming. He was also the guy who had thoroughly provoked her. If she hadn't coincidentally met Yi Shiwen, she would have fallen into the hands of the Duanlong clan this time. He was pretending. She couldn't tell that this guy's acting skills were quite good. Everyone's eyes didn't look at Duanlong Wu Ming. Instead, they looked at Yi Shiwen as if they were looking at a rare treasure. Where did this guy come from? Forget about his origin, they had never even heard of Duanlong Wu Ming. They simply didn't know where this country bumpkin came from. The circle of the top heavens pride experts was so small. Perhaps they didn't see eye to eye with everyone, but at least they knew each other. Where did this country bumpkin come from? What made them even more embarrassed was that they were actually inferior to this country bumpkin. "I am Duanlong Wu Ming." Duanlong Wu Ming took a deep breath. "Even if you haven't seen me before, you should at least have heard of my name." "Duanlong Wu Ming, oh, never heard of you," Yi Shiwen said lazily. Duanlong Wu Ming was so depressed that he almost spat out a mouthful of old blood. He still looked as if he had never heard of him. His eyes stared at Yi Shiwen, wishing he could tear him into pieces. He originally wanted to suppress this guy who had been in the limelight for the past 2 days. Who knew that he would be humiliated instead. "Don't bother with a country bumpkin." He could only keep repeating this sentence to calm his mood. Everyone looked at him and wanted to laugh. Duanlong Wu Ming was incomparably arrogant. Relying on his identity as the son of the Duanlong clan lord, he completely did not put others in his eyes. His target was only Duanlong Wu Yu. Suddenly, Duanlong Wu Ming appeared in front of everyone. He did not set off the slightest fluctuation. When he used space shift, the fluctuation was so small that it could be ignored. Everyone could not help but be secretly speechless. Duanlong Wu Ming's strength was still not something that they could compare with in a short period of time. In this selection, we only need 3 places. Therefore, a total of 3 arenas will be set up. Whoever thinks that they can be selected can naturally go up to the arena and defend. If they defeat all the opponents, they will be selected. Duanlong Wu Ming said indifferently. Everyone secretly thought for a moment. In this way, wouldn't the first one to go up be at a disadvantage? But thinking about it, if they did not have the strength to crush their opponents, what qualifications did they have to represent the Duanlong clan to fight against the Royal Weapon Pavilion? They might even die in the battle between the experts of the Royal Weapon Pavilion. "I want a place," Duanlong Wu Yu said indifferently, but his words were extremely cold and piercing. No one present wanted to challenge Duanlong Wu Yu's authority. Compared to everyone else, he was obviously stronger by more than just a level. Of course, these people did not include Yi Shiwen. He immediately took a step forward and was about to speak. Duanlong Wu Yu was indeed a tough guy. Ordinary people would have their teeth broken if they tried to bite him, but Yi Shiwen was not on the list of ordinary people. Moreover, he wanted the final place. Among these people, Duanlong Wu Yu was undoubtedly the strongest. If he defeated the strongest, wouldn't he be the strongest? Naturally, such a place would fall into his hands, and it would also save him the trouble of fighting many times. Duanlong Wu Yu also recognized Yi Shiwen. His eyes narrowed, bursting with a frightening cold light. I want the second place. Deadly scholar, do you dare to fight with me? Duanlong Wu Ming took a step forward and said. He looked at Yi Shiwen provocatively, and his eyes were filled with unconcealable anger. Yi Shiwen withdrew his steps, looked at Duanlong Wu Ming, and said indifferently, Get lost, don't be so shameless. What did you say? Duanlong Wu Ming was furious. He could no longer bear it, and a terrifying aura erupted, causing the sky to tremble. A powerful treasure aura flowed out from his pores, and fell down, forming a canopy in the sky. His strength was indeed very powerful, incomparable. What he means is that you get lost, don't be an eyesore. Ling Fei took a step forward and said aggressively. She had long been sick of this guy who had constantly pestered her. If there was a chance to disgust him, she would never let it go. Boom! A peerless murderous aura surged out, and cracks appeared in the sky. Just the pressure released was enough to make everyone tremble. If they were to really fight, it would be an extremely terrifying scene. Yi Shiwen took a step forward, and easily dissolved this peerless murderous aura. Then, he looked at Duanlong Wu Ming indifferently and said, She's right. Get lost, don't be an eyesore. How dare you show off in front of me? Duanlong Wu Ming was so angry that his whole body was trembling. He had been ignored again and again. How could he, a self-proclaimed genius, accept this? Good. I only ask you one thing. Do you dare to accept my challenge? Duanlong Wu Ming said anxiously. Yi Shiwen, go, teach him a lesson. You promised me that you would teach him a good lesson. Ling Fei said secretly. Why wouldn't I dare? Yi Shiwen patted Ling Fei's little head, and a sweet fragrance assailed his nostrils. Her hair, his shoulder. Good, since you have the guts, then I will make sure that you will never be able to rise again. Duanlong Wu Ming flew straight into the arena. Everyone's eyes turned to the two. Know yourself, know your enemy, and you will never be defeated. There was a reason why many people did not want to make a move at the beginning. Apart from a peerless master like Duanlong Wu Yu, who could guarantee that they would not lose. Yi Shiwen also flew straight up, not showing any weakness. He had not yet stabilized himself, and Duanlong Wu Ming's attack had already arrived. He crushed the sky with one foot, and a big hand rose up to the sky, slapping down towards Yi Shiwen. Fast. Duanlong Wu Ming's attack was fast to the extreme. Heaven and earth trembled, and the divine radiance split into countless rays. The murderous aura was monstrous, sweeping in all directions. Yi Shiwen raised his hand to block, and seemed to be very casual. Clang! There was a fierce collision. That big hand directly slapped on Yi Shiwen's arm, but it did not produce the result of shattering as expected. Instead, it was like two pieces of metal directly colliding. Everyone was shocked, and their eyes widened. Such an attack was actually easily blocked by him. Chapter 2260. Whoosh! Ah, die! Yi Shiwen did not back down. Golden divinities surged out of his body like thunder, surging crazily and deafeningly. Before Yi Shiwen's voice faded, he had already appeared in front of Nameless Broken Dragon. Impossible! How can he be so strong? How can there be someone so strong among the demigods? However, he was not worried. He had absolute confidence in himself. In front of him, the Abyssal Demon Master and the Divine Union Leader were too inexperienced. They were not on the same level at all. No one could defeat you in the past, but that was in the past. Now your opponent is me. I will also break your undefeatable legend. Yi Shiwen said faintly. However, deep down, he did not really look up to this arrogant fool. If he did not rely on his identity as the son of the family leader, how could he have cultivated to his current level? Nameless Broken Dragon jumped away, only to feel the fist sweeping past the tip of his nose. He couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. If he hadn't decisively released his domain just now, perhaps even his head would have been blown up by Yi Shiwen's punch. Nameless Broken Dragon was chased by Yi Shiwen like a stray dog. Everyone began to mourn for him. If he had not provoked Yi Shiwen, he might have been able to obtain a position with his strength and identity. Now, he had lost all his face. Bang! You have some skills. Yi Shiwen withdrew his fist and did not take advantage of the situation to chase after him. He grinned, revealing his big white teeth. Although I don't like to cause trouble, I also hate it when people find trouble with me. This time, Duan Longwu was the only one who was qualified to compete with Feng Qingji. But this Yi Shiwen actually intended to look for trouble with Duan Longwu. They didn't know whether it was because he was extremely daring or because he was too daring. Bang! Anyone else? Nameless Broken Dragon glanced at the crowd and said. At this time, Yi Shiwen appeared in front of him. He gently lowered his body and avoided this fatal blow. Then, he blasted out a punch. Immediately, the crowd was in an uproar. Everyone knew how difficult it was to deal with Broken Dragon Wu. He was completely above everyone else and had already proven his Tao. Just based on this point, his strength had already surpassed everyone's imagination. The nameless Broken Dragon was not an ordinary person. He immediately unleashed a formidable domain. Yi Shiwen felt as if his fist had entered a muddy algae. His speed was reduced by more than a knot. Wherever there's trouble, that's where you go. His gaze sharpened, and in the next second, his fist appeared in front of Nameless Broken Dragon. No one? In this case, no one will be able to disturb our battle again. If I'm not mistaken, the target you were looking for should be me. Broken Dragon Wu Yu shot a glance at Yi Shiwen. Everyone couldn't help but suck in a mouthful of cold air. One move, just one move to heavily injure Broken Dragon Wu Ming. Amongst them, only Broken Dragon Wu Yu could achieve such strength. This round, the life-stealing scholar wins. Broken Dragon Wu Shang expressionlessly announced the result, as if the people who were sent flying were not his clansmen. Strong, very strong. Bang! Everyone was aghast, marveling at Yi Shiwen's amazing strength. Broken Dragon Wu Ming's strength was divine, but he was like a boulder, not moving an inch. One should know that the Broken Dragon clan's movement technique was also well known, but in front of Yi Shiwen it seemed too slow. A loud clanging sound was heard, bursting with sparks. It was an intense collision. Everyone shook their heads. What a joke. Didn't they see that Broken Dragon Wu Ming could not even withstand one move? He was completely defeated by Yi Shiwen in one move. Even those who had reached the Tao realm would not be able to make him feel so terrified. Broken Dragon Wu Yu's expression was cold, seemingly unaffected by Yi Shiwen's words. However, he did have such confidence. When he was still a demigod, he was able to counterattack an existence who had proven his Tao. Now that he had proven his Tao, who did he need to be afraid of? The crowd suddenly burst into an uproar. That was true, but against Broken Dragon Wu Ming who had proven his Tao, they had no chance of winning. I usually like to strangle trouble in the cradle. Just now, Broken Dragon Wu Yu had made the right choice not to fight with him. If he had really chosen, then there was only one result left, and that was that he would not be able to withstand one move. Broken Dragon Wu Yu, holding a battle spear, stood in the void, like the reincarnation of a god of war, extremely powerful. That's just right. Broken Dragon Wu Yu's face was expressionless. A battle spear appeared in his hand. It was a blood-red spear made entirely of black gold. Its surface was stained with some golden blood. It should have drunk the blood of the gods. At this time, it had not dried up yet. It was unknown what kind of terrifying power it exuded. Too fast. His head was smashed by Yi Shiwen, and his body flew out like a meteor, flying out fiercely. The cold killing intent was incomparably piercing. Yi Shiwen blasted out a punch, and the entire starry sky exploded, collapsing. That's right, I hate trouble the most. If I can make it simple, then I'll make it simple. I heard that you're the strongest, so if I defeat you, I won't have to compete with anyone else. Yi Shiwen said lightly. You're very strong, but unfortunately, although you're comparable to a Tao validation, you're just an ordinary Tao validation. Among the demigods, it's impossible, not in the past, not in the future, to defeat me. Broken Dragon Wuyu said coldly. He had unimaginable confidence in his own strength. Finally, Broken Dragon Wuyu, who had been forced into a corner by Yi Shiwen, had gone completely crazy. With one foot on the ground, an astonishing rebound force burst out, and one hand slapped towards Yi Shiwen. His whole body flashed with a red light, like a peerless beast flying in the sky, and fiercely slammed down in Yi Shiwen's direction. This Yi Shiwen's first target was actually Broken Dragon Wuyu? Some people could not help but sigh. A metal battle armor appeared all over his body, completely wrapping him up. Having seen Yi Shiwen's combat strength, he did not dare to underestimate him. At this moment, in their hearts, Yi Shiwen's threat had risen to the same level as Broken Dragon Wuyu. Yi Shiwen's direct counterattack, his fist transcending space, raised a terrible storm and blew the hair of both sides flying rapidly. On his body, traces of martial arts emerged, like a waterfall, and looked to have an unimaginable brilliance. Poor Broken Dragon Wuyu. He could have clearly watched the two of them fight to the death, but now he was beaten to the point where he could not even get up. Yi Shiwen's eyebrows slightly wrinkled. This Broken Dragon Wuyu gave him a very dangerous feeling, which was tyrannical for no reason at all. Everyone retreated into the distance. The battle just now was almost one-sided by Yi Shiwen. As long as Yi Shiwen did not use his full strength, there was nothing to worry about. But now, the two great masters had used their full strength, so naturally, everything was completely different. This idiot, he was just played like a mouse. He's lost the face of my Broken Dragon clan. Broken Dragon Wuyu said coldly, a bit of disdain flashing in his eyes. The real Yuan on Yi Shiwen's body burst out, and around him, the sky collapsed, the dark universe rotated, and everything was ruined. How could they go up and humiliate themselves at this time? Yes, in their hearts, this was practically asking to be humiliated. I don't believe it. What kind of fortuitous encounter did he have? Impossible, is he born with an extraordinary physique? Otherwise, how could he be so tyrannical? So, he slowly dragged the battle spear in his hand. Immediately, many of the geniuses felt a kind of ice-cold killing intent and chill emanating from their bones. This came from the battle spear itself. It was definitely not from Broken Dragon Wuyu. No one knew where he got it from, but it was actually so terrifying. In the end, he could only spit out such a sentence. Unknowingly, his back was completely drenched in cold sweat. If he had not seen it with his own eyes, he would not have dared to imagine that other than that freak Broken Dragon Wuyu, there was actually someone who could give him such a sense of oppression. This deadly scholar, what kind of movement technique does he have? How can he be so strong? Broken Dragon Wuyu was far from the only one who had such doubts. Everyone else was also completely shocked. Just the movement technique that Yi Shiwen had displayed was already enough to put him among them. So fast. Boom. Boom. His strength was far more tyrannical than what everyone had imagined. Many people found it hard to believe. In the distance, Broken Dragon Wuyu struggled for a while, trying to get up, but to no avail. He was completely knocked out by Yi Shiwen. Boom. Broken Dragon Wuyu's whole body stiffened. How could he be so fast? What kind of movement technique was that? Bang. Broken Dragon Wuyu is simply stronger than I initially expected. I thought that compared to Broken Dragon Wuyu, the gap between me and him was not that big. Now, it seems that this is really a ridiculous joke. Now there was another one, and the gap between the strength of both sides was really too big. They had never seen such a movement technique before. Even when he was traversing through space, there was not the slightest ripple. One could imagine how fast he was. At this time, Broken Dragon Wuyu was just constantly dodging Yi Shiwen's attacks mechanically. He no longer dared to stop, because once he stopped, he would be hit by Yi Shiwen. Although he had not been hit by Yi Shiwen before, he could see the layers of space that had been blasted by Yi Shiwen at a glance. He did not dare to take this risk at all, because it was almost like courting death. He suddenly stomped a big hole under his feet, and at the critical moment, his whole body flew thousands of meters away like a cannonball, barely dodging Yi Shiwen's punch. Chapter 2261. Go ahead and try. Broken Dragon Wuyu's eyes were cold, bursting with unimaginable light. At the same time, a powerful aura burst out like an ocean and covered Yi Shiwen. However, Yi Shiwen didn't care about it at all. He took a step forward and blocked this ocean-like coercion. Two peerless murderous intents collided. Cracks appeared in the sky. Neither side gave way. You should be glad that your realm is higher than mine. Otherwise, I can defeat you in one move, just like how I defeated Broken Dragon Wuming. Yi Shiwen glanced at Broken Dragon Wuming, who was struggling in the distance. He stared at Yi Shiwen with a gloomy and cold gaze. He was filled with hatred towards Yi Shiwen. Unfortunately, Broken Dragon Wuyu's next words made him have the urge to spit out a mouthful of blood. Don't compare me with that trash. Even if we are in the same realm, I have never beaten anyone. Broken Dragon Wuyu said coldly. He had an air of superiority, looking down on all the people in the world. What's more, it's hard to say whether you can reach Tao validation. You are still far from being able to compare with me. Everyone nodded. Even they themselves were very clear that having strength comparable to Tao validation did not mean that they could enter Tao validation in the future. On the contrary, because of this, if they attracted divine tribulations in the future, they would be many times stronger than ordinary people. If you are really so powerful, your Broken Dragon clan would not need to invite so many heroes in the world, Yi Shiwen retorted. Broken Dragon Wuyu looked at Yi Shiwen indifferently. I also think that there is no need for this. I am enough. If even I can't stop Feng Qingji, then no one in this area can have such strength. How arrogant. I want to see if you have such ability. Yi Shiwen stepped forward and said indifferently. Kill, I will show you now. Broken Dragon Wuyu roared. His aura swallowed the mountains and rivers, and his body moved like the stars. He attacked without hesitation, not giving Yi Shiwen the slightest time to think. Yi Shiwen wasn't to be outdone either. Golden divinities pervaded out of his entire body, and instantly swept across the sky like a mass of golden mist. The broken sky sword appeared in Yi Shiwen's hand. He wouldn't be careless in the face of such an opponent. Compared to Broken Dragon Nameless, Broken Dragon Wu Yu was much stronger. Dragon Breaker Wu Yu's battle spear had fused with his entire body. It even split the sky apart as he attacked with all his might. The spear fiercely slashed down. Around this spear, cracks appeared one after another in the sky. At this time, the space-breaking sword in Yi Shiwen's hand had also displayed the king's tyrannical descent and collided with each other. Boom! This area of space exploded, and a shocking explosion occurred. Everyone turned pale with fright. The standard of the battle between both parties had completely surpassed the strength of an ordinary early eminent Saint stage powerhouse. Both parties stood steadily in the sky without taking even half a step back. However, the space under their feet had already collapsed like a landslide. It was extremely terrifying. Broken Dragon Wu Yu's pupils contracted slightly. This was unprecedented. He was wearing a battle suit, and he could almost borrow the power of an ancient great god. It could be said that he had infinite strength. Moreover, with the protection of the battle suit, he didn't have to worry about what kind of attack could hurt him. However, Yi Shiwen alone was enough to make him inexplicably shocked. He was wearing a battlesuit, and he had borrowed a lot of power from the battlesuit. However, Yi Shiwen was almost empty-handed. How could he be so powerful? Not bad. Again. Broken Dragon Wu Yu raised the battle spear in his hand again. It directly pierced through the sky and slashed down towards Yi Shiwen. The terrifying astral wind blew, and his hair fluttered continuously. His eyes were extremely calm, and there wasn't the slightest hint of panic in them. The long sword in his hand burst out an incomparably shocking divine light. Deadly Scholar, didn't you say that I'm no match for you in the same realm? Even if we're in the same realm, I'll still kill you. Broken Dragon Wu Yu said coldly and domineeringly. As the #1 genius of the Broken Dragon clan, he had such confidence, and he also had such confidence. Cut the crap. Wait for me to defeat you, then we'll talk slowly. Yi Shiwen took a step forward, and a big hole appeared in the void under his feet. The sky-breaking sword in his hand displayed the Emperor's arrival. At this moment, along with the sword chi that shot out, he had already incarnated into an incomparably powerful emperor, controlling everything between heaven and earth. Broken Dragon Wu Yu's murderous aura was even more overwhelming. The terrifying real elemental energy had completely transformed into magical power. This was a terrifying energy that was one level higher than real elemental energy. Since ancient times, there was a saying that magical power was omnipotent and magical power was boundless. And this boundless magical power referred to the energy of this magical power. The energy of Broken Dragon Wu Yu instantly became several levels stronger than before. This was the crushing of a realm above a realm below. Clang! With a loud roar, the tip of the long sword and the battle spear collided directly. Both of them erupted with amazing combat power, and their fighting intent penetrated the entire universe. Everyone could not help but feel a chill down their spine. If such a battle were to take place outside, there was no doubt that it would be a terrible disaster. Once such a level of combat power was fully unleashed, and the battle could not be ended as soon as possible, it would be a real disaster. This was a battle of all-out effort. A string of golden blood splashed out from Yi Shiwen's mouth. His eyes actually dimmed a little. Everyone trembled. This was the first time Yi Shiwen had been injured since he appeared in front of everyone. Could it be that even this dark horse that everyone was optimistic about was not a match for Broken Dragon Wu Yu? Sure enough, they could only challenge ordinary Dao Confirmation Masters at most. One must know that before Broken Dragon Wu Yu reached Dao Confirmation, he was comparable to the top existence of Dao Confirmation. Not to mention, after he reached Dao Confirmation, he almost immediately surpassed everyone. Everyone could not help but feel a little sad. Those who had not reached Dao Confirmation were completely at a disadvantage. They did not know if they would be able to reach Dao Confirmation in the future. On the other side, Broken Dragon Wu Yu's body was bathed in divine radiance, and his appearance could not be seen clearly. He looked like a living god. This is really a little interesting. Is this spiritual power? It's really amazing. Yi Shiwen smiled faintly and wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth. The power of spiritual power was much more powerful than he had initially imagined. It could almost be said that it had completely exceeded his initial expectations. So far, the three gods he had fought, whether it was the Abyssal Demon Master or the Divine Union Leader, had just reached Dao Confirmation, and the chi in their bodies had not yet been completely transformed into spiritual power. Therefore, he had not sensed it. The Broken Dragon family's great commander did not have enough time. From the beginning to the end, he had been suppressed and had no time to release it. Is there really no way to defeat him as a demigod? Many people were a little desperate. They were confident that they would not lose to anyone, but at this moment, they were a little desperate. Even Yi Shiwen was like this, let alone them. Bang! A slight cracking sound came from within the endless divine radiance, and a string of blood spurted out. It was splattered from Broken Dragon Wu Yu's body. This is divine blood. Could it be that broken dragon Wu Yu is also injured? Everyone was shocked. They could not believe it. Yi Shiwen was injured. No matter how strong he was only a demigod, and broken dragon Wu Yu was a genuine god. How could he also be injured? In the midst of a tit-for-tat battle between the two of them, broken dragon Wu Yu had actually been injured. Everyone looked over. Indeed, broken dragon Wu Yu's chest was dripping with blood. The blood was constantly dripping down. The blood that dripped down was actually repairing his armor. Using God's blood to repair the god armor, broken dragon Wu Yu was indeed amazing. Even if he had just been injured, how many people would dare to underestimate him? Speaking of this, everyone thought of an even more terrifying fact. Broken dragon Wu Yu had relied on his superior realm to crush Yi Shiwen's qi with his spiritual power, but the result was that both sides had been defeated. Was such an outcome not enough to shock everyone? Although I don't want to use my realm to crush you, there is no other way. I don't want this battle to drag on. Broken dragon Wu Yu said faintly. The wounds on his body had quickly recovered, and soon there was no difference from the beginning. Everyone was shocked. Had Yi Shiwen become so strong that he could not even suppress broken dragon Wu Yu without using his full strength? Opposite him, Yi Shiwen's recovery speed was also amazing. Although he did not have a divine body, gilded tyrant form combined with phoenix regeneration technique, his recovery speed was even better than broken dragon Wu Yu's. As I said, killing you in the same realm is easy. Even if we are not in the same realm, it is not difficult to kill you. Yi Shiwen did not give in at all. Broken dragon Wu Yu sneered. He rushed towards Yi Shiwen with a bloody spear in his hand, and a stone tablet appeared in his other hand. Broken dragon breaking steel hand. This was the supreme loss technique of the broken dragon family. It was the supreme god-level loss technique that was comprehended on the broken dragon stone. It pressed down on Yi Shiwen on the spot. Although the broken dragon stone was fake, the two words broken dragon were really shining, as if a powerful master was chanting scriptures, moving the broken dragon stone and suppressing his powerful opponent. Yi Shiwen still did not have the slightest fear. He did not give in at all. He directly blasted out the divine fist of redemption and transformed into the Lord of Redemption. A punch blasted out, completely contending with the broken dragon breaking steel hand. Boom! There was a huge roar. The divine fist of redemption and the broken dragon breaking steel hand collided directly. The splashing divine light was as dazzling as the explosion of the galaxy, making the entire universe lose all other colors in an instant. At this time and place, everyone's attention was only left here. Shwa! However, such an offensive was just a feint. The real killer move, accompanied by the bloody spear, arrived in front of Yi Shiwen, covering the sky and covering the earth. Chapter 2262. His battle clothes had also been torn apart by Yi Shiwen's attack. There were countless wounds on his body, and blood was gushing out like a column. However, he didn't care about it at this time. He had been forced into a disadvantageous position by Yi Shiwen. This was the first time for him. Even with his pride, he had never encountered such a difficult opponent. Broken dragon Wu Yu roared like a beast. His eyes were full of fierce light. He held the blood-red spear in both hands and rushed towards Yi Shiwen. This is the end. I will defeat you now. I don't want to continue playing. Bang! This sword directly slashed on the iron armor on his body. A burst of sparks flew, and then blood splashed out on the spot. The iron armor on his body, which was unknown how strong, directly had a crack, and blood splashed out. The sword pierced through the air, like a star exploding. The sword flower turned into a universe of stars, and instantly slashed down. He didn't know when it had started, but just blocking Yi Shiwen's attack was already something to be happy about. There was a loud roar. the atoms were annihilated, and a huge mushroom cloud rose up, completely swallowing everything. No one could see clearly. He did not dare to imagine what kind of body could be so tyrannical. No wonder Yi Shiwen could not be at a disadvantage when he was already wearing the battle armor. Broken Dragon Wuyu no longer cared about his injuries. He directly drew the Broken Dragon Stone and collided with Yi Shiwen's sky flipping seal. Initially, Broken Dragon Wuyu could still rely on his battle armor, which was also incomparably sturdy, to attack Yi Shiwen. He could even injure Yi Shiwen. However, slowly, as his battle armor continued to be damaged, the gap between him and Yi Shiwen was also slowly widening. Slowly, he suffered more and more injuries, and gradually, he was no longer a match for Yi Shiwen. Yi Shiwen just stepped on the ground and operated the observing person scripture. The surroundings turned into a universe, and in this universe, the sun, moon, and stars rotated around him. He was like the only true God in this universe. Nothing could stop his footsteps, and nothing could shake his position. Bang! Humph! Broken Dragon Wuyu wasn't the least bit afraid. At this moment, a battle god suddenly stood up from the blood-colored battle spear in his hand. Blood-colored light burst forth from the spear. Blood-colored energy burst forth, blocking the peerless demon. Broken Dragon Wuyu couldn't withstand this kind of power and was sent flying. He punched out, and this punch pierced through the entire universe like a meteor streaking across the sky. Everywhere he passed, the stars were completely shattered, and even the sky was shattered. Yi Shiwen had already gained the upper hand. He was suppressing Dragon Wuyu in an orderly manner, and all kinds of martial arts had erupted with astonishing might in his hands. Boom! In this sword strike, he had transformed into a true emperor, the Emperor Domineering Descent. Although Broken Dragon Wuyu was powerful, he was not powerful enough to make him feel hopeless. Now that he had tested it, Broken Dragon Wuyu's ability was almost at the middle of immortal level. He was just a step away from breaking through. The power of his entire body was raised to an absolute height. Suddenly, a figure fell out from it. Everyone took a closer look, and that person was none other than Broken Dragon Wuyu. At this moment, Broken Dragon Wuyu's body was bleeding profusely, and he was no longer as powerful as before. He was in a sorry state, extremely sorry. Both the demon and the blood-colored war god's bodies ruptured at the same time, and golden blood sprayed out. Neither of them were artifact spirits, but they were formed from the will of the two divine artifacts. They were far from being real artifact spirits, but in reality, they were not much stronger than artifact spirit. However, Yi Shiwen did not dodge at all. A touch of demonic energy directly flew up from his body, and instantly wrapped him in it. It was the demon summoning banner. Almost instantly, the demon summoning banner surged with an endless amount of demon chi, turning into a matchless demon head. It pounced in the direction of Broken Dragon Wuyu, opened its bloody mouth, and swallowed everything it could see in its mouth. It was a bloody battle between the two of them. Such an attack made everyone feel a chill down their spines. The strength of these two people was clearly above them. They were only at the demigod realm, but they were already strong enough to kill powerful experts at the doctrine realm. What made his self-esteem even more unacceptable was that this person was only in the demigod realm, which was an entire realm lower than his. "What kind of defense weapon is your body?" he said in horror. To put it bluntly, he did not believe in the Broken Dragon family at all. He was seriously injured by a sword, and Broken Dragon Wuyu did not even have time to dodge. However, Broken Dragon Wuyu was also a ruthless person. In the face of such a situation, he simply did not dodge. He directly dragged the battle spear in his hand, pierced through the sky, and suddenly stabbed at Yi Shiwen. How is this possible, this body? Broken Dragon Wuyu was suddenly shocked. He didn't expect that he would only be able to stab 3 inches into Yi Shiwen's body. It was completely different from his original plan of stabbing Yi Shiwen's internal organs. Boom. He completely had the upper hand in terms of strength. He had not yet used his full strength, and he had not integrated the martial arts incarnation and the 5 Emperors' battle armor. Otherwise, his strength would be comparable to a master in the middle of the immortal level. Puff. Fast. However, this was not a problem at all for him. This was a brutal battle. The battle between the 2 god artifacts could be described as neither giving way to the other. It was extremely brutal. As the supreme skill that the Broken Dragon family relied on, the power of the Broken Dragon tablet breaking hand was naturally self-explanatory. This was Yi Shiwen's real killer move. There was a fierce collision sound. It was a tragic battle. The 2 artifacts collided fiercely. Although the battle spear in Broken Dragon Wuyu's hand was powerful, there was no way to break through the defense of the demon summoning flag. It was extremely fast, and it directly pierced into Yi Shiwen's body. Under the attack of hatred, even the defense of the demon summoning flag was pierced, and it directly blasted into Yi Shiwen's body. Clang! However, fortunately, even if he did not use all his strength, he could completely suppress Broken Dragon Wuyu with his own strength, and he could slowly defeat him. However, it was too late. His reaction was not as fast as Yi Shiwen's. Even if he used his territory to slow down the speed of Yi Shiwen's sword, it still directly slashed his body. Clang! However, it was useless. In the face of Yi Shiwen's strength, all their attacks seemed to be too childish. Broken Dragon Wuyu's face changed slightly, and he frowned slightly. This was the first time he was so serious. Yi Shiwen's attack was too fast, and what was worse was that Yi Shiwen's attack did not give way at all. It could almost be said to be powerful and heavy. Such a scene was extremely terrifying, as if an emperor was destroying the world. Fast. He must have a backup plan. Otherwise, if something happened, he would be at a loss. Almost nothing could stop the attack of this sword. The clash between the demon and the blood-colored war god was like the collision of yin and yang. It was as if the world was going to be split apart. The world was going to be completely turned into powder by this attack. This was the terrifying power of a divine artifact. Under this full power attack, it was comparable to a god, or even more terrifying than a god. Clang! If he had a breakthrough, he might have to waste some time, but now he was absolutely no match for Yi Shiwen. The 2 killer moves almost came one after another in an instant. These 2 moves seemed to be a feint attack, and the other move was the real main attack direction. Fast. Yi Shiwen glanced at him. He didn't have to bear the attack just now. He could use Tianyuan Mirror to take it, but he still chose to take it head-on. Because he had already produced 2 divine tools, he was basically as eye-catching as Ling Fei. If he produced another one, it would be terrible. Moreover, the quality of Tianyuan Mirror was far beyond ordinary. If there was someone who could recognize it, then perhaps he would have fled from the Broken Dragon clan. The battle between the 2 of them had already far exceeded the ordinary proving way. At this time, Broken Dragon Wuyu could no longer care about his initial promise. He had originally wanted to defeat Yi Shiwen in the same realm, but now it seemed that it was simply impossible. Even if his realm was higher than Yi Shiwen's, he did not dare to say that he was Yi Shiwen's opponent. In the dangerous environment of the Broken Dragon clan, he could not use his full strength. If something happened, he would not even have a trump card. Bang! Bang! But in fact, these 2 moves could be changed at any time. The killer move could also be a feint attack, and the Broken Dragon tablet breaking hand could also become a real attack. Bang! At this time, Broken Dragon Wuyu had been forced to a dead end by Yi Shiwen. He was completely crazy. He produced the Broken Dragon tablet breaking hand and collided with Yi Shiwen. Boom! Human Dao Fist. Roar! Yi Shiwen did not answer. He produced the overturning sky seal in his hand and blasted it towards Broken Dragon Wu. This is just the beginning. Isn't it too early for you to be complacent? Yi Shiwen's voice appeared in front of Broken Dragon Wuyu, who had a somewhat complacent look on his face. There was a sound like gold and iron colliding. The battle spear pierced Yi Shiwen's body like gold and iron, but it still went in freely. However, it was not deep, only 3 inches. Both of them fought again. Their speed was as fast as lightning. The fierce collision caused the sky to explode, and the blazing light swept everything. In a short period of time, the two sides had already exchanged over 1,000 moves. Broken Dragon Wu Yu had already gone crazy. Every time he attacked with his blood-red battle spear, it would bring about a bloody battlefield. Countless opponents who had been defeated by the blood-red battle spear, their screams would briefly revive and attack Yi Shiwen. Chapter 2263. What do you mean by tragic? To the crowd, this was already tragic enough. A god had been killed to such an extent. If they hadn't seen it with their own eyes, they definitely wouldn't have believed it. Moreover, Broken Dragon Wuyu was not an ordinary Dao validation powerhouse. Even among the powerhouses who had just achieved Dao validation on beginner holy level, he was famous for being powerful. In just a short while, he had already reached the threshold of an intermediate immortal level powerhouse. His cultivation speed was extremely terrifying. He had never heard of a demigod being able to contend with him. Even someone as confident as nameless Broken Dragon did not dare to say that he could handle Broken Dragon Wuyu when he was facing him. Everyone realized that Broken Dragon Wuyu's declaration that he would be fearless even if they were on the same level as him now seemed like a joke. However, no one dared to laugh at Broken Dragon Wuyu because it wasn't that he wasn't strong enough, but that the fatal stealing scholar in front of him was just too terrifying. He was simply a monster. They had never seen such a ferocious demigod before. Of course, they didn't know that Yi Shiwen hadn't used his trump card yet. He hadn't used his true strength yet. Otherwise, they would have been scared silly. Who would have thought that Wu Yu's Broken Dragon would have such a day? Many people secretly rejoiced in their hearts. Many people were still unhappy with Broken Dragon Wuyu. They themselves were very clear that they were far inferior to Broken Dragon Wuyu. They did not dare to challenge Broken Dragon Wuyu. If it were not for the fact that there were 3 slots this time, if there was only one, they would not have come at all. Unless he had proven his Dao, there was no way he could compare to Broken Dragon Wuyu. Could it be that he had come to seek humiliation? Moreover, the battle just now had completely demonstrated what it meant to be tyrannical. Wu Yu's Broken Dragon truly lived up to his reputation. His strength was so strong that it was terrifying. However, Yi Shiwen was just too strong. Roar! Broken Dragon Wuyu went completely crazy. He let out a huge roar and the sky cracked. Fortunately, they were in a small world. Otherwise, it would have caused great chaos. Behind him, there was a looming majestic figure with an unimaginably terrifying aura. He had integrated his martial arts incarnation into his body, and he was able to compete with an expert in the middle of immortal level in one breath. Although he was just an expert at the bottom of the middle of immortal level, it was already extremely terrifying. Broken Dragon Wu Yu opened his pair of ice-cold eyes, and a powerful phantom of the god of war appeared behind him. He didn't hesitate and directly rushed towards Yi Shiwen to kill him. Whoosh! Yi Shiwen's figure suddenly disappeared in front of him, and he fiercely pounced on empty air, completely unable to keep up with Yi Shiwen's speed. Why is it still? Did we see wrongly? Everyone suspected that their eyes were playing tricks on them. It was obvious that the Broken Dragon Wu Yu had burst forth with the strength of an immortal level beginner, but the result was that Yi Shiwen had easily dodged it. In the next second, Yi Shiwen's figure appeared in the distance. You? Broken Dragon Wu Yu's complexion turned ugly all of a sudden. Yi Shiwen's speed had suddenly increased by so much, but it wasn't because he had held back like him. So, there was only one possibility, and that was that he had held back just now. Thinking of this, his face became even uglier. You didn't do your best just now. Broken Dragon Wu Yu gritted his teeth and suddenly shocked everyone. It was already hard to imagine that Yi Shiwen could suppress Broken Dragon Wu Yu, but what was even more terrifying was that he actually did not use his full strength. Damn! Nobody knew who said this, but they were completely dumbfounded and could not control their emotions at all. This was indeed a monster. Broken Dragon Wu Yu let out a low growl, like a beast that had been provoked. Some kind of emotion was rising, and around him, the vacuum exploded, becoming more and more terrifying. This was simply a slap in the face. Moreover, he did not even have the strength to fight back. There was dead silence, and everyone kept quiet out of fear. Broken Dragon Wu Yu was tall, and at this time, he was like a mountain. The aura that erupted from him was so oppressive that everyone could not breathe. There was a strange expression on everyone's face. Broken Dragon Wu Yu was cold and arrogant, and he did not seem to put anyone in his eyes among his peers. In the end, Yi Shiwen did not even use his full strength, and he was beaten to the point where he could not fight back. This was a kind of complete contempt. Broken Dragon Wu Yu wanted to fight Yi Shiwen and establish his supreme prestige. The battle between the two sides could be described as tragic, and it was okay for Broken Dragon Wu Yu to fall into a disadvantage, but what was even more unacceptable was that this was the result of Yi Shiwen not using his full strength. It was simply a slap in the face, a slap that resounded. Since his debut, no one had dared to look down on him like this. Broken Dragon Wu Yu must be furious now. Who asked him to be arrogant? Now he's got a slap in the face. Many people reacted, and there was a faint joy in their hearts. On the high throne, the Dao-confirming experts of the Duanlong clan looked at each other, not knowing what to say. They were very clear about Broken Dragon Wu Yu's strength. In time to come, it was not impossible for him to be ranked amongst them, or even surpass them in the end. In this battle against the Imperial Weapon Pavilion, their final plan was to have Broken Dragon Wu Yu as the leader, and recruit 2 more people to form the situation of Tianji's horse race. Who would have thought that it would really attract a fierce dragon? It was completely a case of fierce dragons don't cross the river. Although it was said that a strong dragon could not suppress a local snake, but such a ridiculously strong dragon, even a local snake could not defeat it. What is the background of this deadly scholar? How is he so powerful? Could he be someone from other places? Why have we never heard of him? Not only that deadly scholar, there is also that charming Yiksha. Her strength is not weak, and logically speaking, it is impossible for 2 people who have never been heard of to suddenly jump out. These few years, there just happened to be an invasion from the outside. Could it be? Someone guessed, and unexpectedly guessed the correct answer. Impossible, the aura on their bodies are pure native auras of the equipment Sovereign Heaven. Otherwise, the heavenly way is enough to crush them to death. Someone immediately refuted. The aura of these 2 people was very pure, and with their cultivation, they could not see any clues or flaws. And at this moment, while everyone was discussing, Broken Dragon Wu Yu finally straightened his body. His eyes contained the life and death of the universe, bringing an unimaginable pressure to the people. His face was as calm as water, and he walked towards Yi Shiwen step by step. His mood was unimaginably heavy. He was forced by Yi Shiwen to fuse with the martial arts incarnation, and originally planned to use it to deal with Feng Qingji. Now that he used it on Yi Shiwen, the result was that Yi Shiwen did not use his full strength at all. Boom! Broken Dragon Wu Yu made his move. One of his hands turned into the Broken Dragon Stone, crushing everything, and turned into a dazzling divine light that blasted towards Yi Shiwen, bursting out with dazzling light. The sky was trembling, and an unimaginably terrifying power was unimaginable. He roared. This attack was going to strike down the sun in the sky. Bang! His broken dragon stone was blocked by Yi Shiwen's chi-condensed hand. Amazing divine light burst out, but it could not break free from Yi Shiwen's blockade. "Deadly scholar, do you dare to fight with all your strength?" Broken Dragon Wu Yu roared at Yi Shiwen. This was even more humiliating than being defeated. "Wait until you have the ability to do so," Yi Shiwen said slowly. He spread out his hands and evolved an amazing martial art. His body turned into a universe, and the sun, moon, and stars were constantly rotating with his movements. This was an amazing scene. Many people could not help but feel a chill when they saw it. Broken Dragon Soulless continued to attack Yi Shiwen, but all his attacks seemed too childish in front of Yi Shiwen. They couldn't shake Yi Shiwen's defense at all. Even the universe that Yi Shiwen had evolved could not break it. Even with just his own strength, Yi Shiwen was enough to suppress Broken Dragon Wu Yu. Everyone was shocked. Who could match such strength? If it were not for Broken Dragon Wu Yu, they might not even be qualified to see this scene. Broken Dragon Wu Yu became more and more shocked as the battle went on. He had never been so passive before. Even when facing Feng Qingji, he did not feel so passive. This kid was too amazing. The spiritual power in his body surged out. For a moment, the sky collapsed, and the starry sky completely collapsed. There were chaotic turbulence everywhere, and it looked extremely shocking. "Watch carefully, take my punch." Yi Shiwen blasted out the divine fist of redemption again, but this time, he did not deliberately suppress his strength. Instead, he punched directly. Bang! Broken Dragon Wu Yu was hit on the spot and flew out. He did not know how many thousands of miles he flew, and the iron clothes on his body were shattered in an instant. In the end, it was not a divine tool, but a pseudo-divine tool. Not everyone was like Yi Shiwen and Ling Fei, who were so rich with a few divine tools. Moreover, it was a defensive divine tool. Its value was comparable to the price of a few offensive divine tools. Fortunately, the iron clothes took all the attacks for him. Although the iron clothes were shattered, he himself was unharmed. However, before he could rejoice, Yi Shiwen had already rushed in front of him. Yi Shiwen's hair fluttered in the wind and his eyes were cold. It was as if the universe was being born and destroyed. He was very calm. He transformed the overturning sky seal in his hand and smashed it down from the sky. Bang! Broken Dragon Wu Yu had no strength to resist. He was hit again and fell hard on the spot. The entire small world that was reinforced by the matrix was almost smashed. His whole body was almost shattered. Broken Dragon Wu Yu struggled to get up, but this time, he was completely injured. How could he have the ability to stand up again? Yi Shiwen also stopped and did not continue to attack. This made the Dao confirming experts of the Duan Long clan breathe a sigh of relief. After all, even if they were defeated, Duan Long Wu Yu was one of them, and Yi Shiwen was just an outsider. Naturally, they could not help Yi Shiwen. Chapter 2264. In their eyes, Yi Shiwen was naturally tyrannical. It could almost be said that more than 80% of the martial arts in the Weapon Emperor Heaven were more or less related to the Weapon Emperor himself. The other place was naturally reserved for Broken Dragon Wu Yu. Even if he was defeated by Yi Shiwen, no one could compete with Yi Shiwen for so long other than him. Yi Shiwen was recognized as tyrannical. It was a turbulent ocean. Huge waves of more than thousands of meters were surging at any time. What made Yi Shiwen's eyes widen was that these waves, and even the entire turbulent ocean, were transformed from a kind of energy. It was not real seawater. Yi Shiwen nodded with a smile, but he did not take it to heart. Soon, the loophole in the Weapon Emperor Heaven would be filled. How could he continue to stay? He would have to wait for 100,000 years for the next time. Yi Shiwen roared, stepped out, and suddenly rushed into the Broken Dragon Pond, like a dragon returning to the sea. A bold idea emerged in his mind. He wanted to use the energy in the Broken Dragon Pond to completely refine the Broken Dragon Stone. At least, he needed to be able to control it. On the other hand, the Equipment Emperor Pavilion was said to have obtained most of the teachings left behind by the Equipment Emperor. However, besides themselves, no one knew whether it was true or not. After all, according to the legends of the Equipment Emperor Heaven, the Equipment Emperor had left far, far away. What was a tyrant's fighting style? This was a downright tyrant's fighting style. It was bullying you with a divine tool. What could you do? He did not even have to worry about the lack of energy because the Broken Dragon Pond did not lack energy. It was completely absorbed by him and became the fundamental energy for him to refine the Celestial Emperor Tool refining technique. This is the most fundamental Broken Dragon Pond of our Broken Dragon clan. You're very lucky because under normal circumstances, our Broken Dragon Pond is not open to the public. Even I have only come here once. This time, we opened it in order to resist the aggressiveness of the Tool Emperor Pavilion. Broken Dragon Wushang looked at Yi Shiwen with some envy and said, Ling Fei did not hide it like Yi Shiwen. She had a completely bite me if you don't accept it look. Compared to the soul-stirring battle between Yi Shiwen and Broken Dragon Wuyu, Ling Fei's victory made everyone completely helpless. If it wasn't for a few old fellows that had survived from the era of the Equipment Emperor, they would practically be unable to confirm if the Equipment Emperor really existed or what sort of existence he was. Yi Shiwen and Ling Fei went deep into the Duanlong clan under the guidance of Wushang of the Broken Dragon clan. They passed through layers of secret spaces and shuttled through subspaces. They would occasionally have divine tools in their hands. However, these divine tools were considered to be relatively wealthy. However, the quality of their divine tools couldn't be compared with Ling Fei's defensive divine tool. In fact, they weren't on the same level. A wave of scorching heat assaulted his face, making him feel as if his entire body was about to melt. However, this is just the beginning. As long as you perform well, if you can win against the Imperial Weapon Pavilion, you will all be included in our Duanlong clan's priority nurturing. Your future prospects will be limitless. Duanlong Wushang said. At this time, the Broken Dragon Stone that was hidden in the Tianyuan mirror suddenly flew out and hovered above Yi Shiwen's head. Then, it began to operate on its own. The surging energy was first absorbed by the Broken Dragon Stone, and then transformed into Yi Shiwen's body. Suddenly, he felt as if he had been saved. They couldn't break Ling Fei's defense. However, they were afraid of being hit by Ling Fei. They would die if they were hit, and they would be injured if they were hit. The might of the stone was unimaginably great. The scene was so silent that even a pin drop could be heard. Ling Fei also followed closely behind. She suddenly jumped like a fish, and jumped into the Broken Dragon Pond like a mermaid. Yi Shiwen didn't know whether it was originally compatible or not. Originally, the level of Yi Shiwen's Celestial Emperor Tool refining technique wasn't considered to be very high. It was mostly used for tool refining. However, he hadn't expected that the two of them wouldn't escape in a sorry state even after a long time had passed. The Broken Dragon Pond was still full of stormy waves. Countless energy ores were being used, but there wasn't the slightest change. You can practice in this Broken Dragon Pond for a year. You can cultivate in the Broken Dragon Pool for a year. After a year, it will be time for us to fight with the Imperial Weapon Pavilion. Especially you, Deadly Scholar. You are very strong, but your origin is unknown. But it doesn't matter. We, the Duanlong family, have always recruited talents without any restrictions. As long as you are willing to work for the Duanlong family, we will naturally give you the necessary support. Especially with the help of the Broken Dragon Pool, this year's cultivation will be equivalent to countless years of cultivation. Duanlong Wushang said. Boom. The more inheritance one obtained from the Tool Emperor, the more powerful he would be. Just like the Broken Dragon Stone that was left behind by the Tool Emperor in the past. In their opinion, Ling Fei had won the successive battles with ease. Everyone hadn't even probed the bottom line of her strength. Even the craziest person didn't expect that Yi Shiwen would defeat Broken Dragon Wushang so easily in the end. Ling Fei also looked excited. However, Yi Shiwen didn't know this little girl. He probably didn't care about it at all. But even so, the Broken Dragon clan was still helpless in the face of the Tool Emperor's pavilion's aggressiveness. Yi Shiwen was sitting cross-legged in the center of this whirlpool. His whole body was surrounded by the endless energy of the Broken Dragon Pond. Separated by the Broken Dragon Pond, he could barely sense that the two of them were still alive even with his martial power. He couldn't really find out their situation. Broken Dragon Wushang suddenly frowned and thought, I wanted to remind them to be careful of the surging energy in the Broken Dragon Pond. Even a Dao-confirming expert wouldn't dare to act recklessly. But forget it. I'll let them suffer a little so that they can understand the power of our Broken Dragon clan. They entered a secret space. From the inside to the outside, it was covered by countless arrays without any loopholes. At the same time, any means of directly crossing through space was sealed. This was the core of the Broken Dragon clan. Don't worry. I, Deadly Scholar, am not an ungrateful person. This time you'll see, said Yi Shiwen. Otherwise, Ling Fei wouldn't have been able to escape from so many experts. After defeating Broken Dragon Wushang, Yi Shiwen naturally obtained one of the three places. Such combat power was simply unmatched. Broken Dragon Wushang frowned and said, Don't let your guard down. Feng Qingji's strength is more tyrannical than many old monsters. Originally, we cultivated Broken Dragon Wushang and concealed the news of his Dao confirming in order to catch him off guard. But now it seems that it's not necessary. Your strength is indeed amazing. But you'd better confirm your Dao. Otherwise, I'm afraid you won't be his opponent. The third place was successfully taken by Ling Fei. This result was also beyond Yi Shiwen's expectations. But before he could think too much, Broken Dragon Wushang brought them into the depths of the Broken Dragon clan. His body glowed with a golden light. The surging energy was being absorbed by him at an astonishing speed. No one had any objections. On the contrary, Ling Fei wasn't surprised. She just looked around curiously. His brows furrowed slightly. The amount of energy gushing over was too tremendous. Just a single drop of energy water from the Broken Dragon pool could allow an ordinary person to reach the 10,000 longevity realm. From this, one could tell how tremendous it was. Yi Shiwen was a strong dragon, a dark horse. But this strong dragon was a little too strong, and the quality of this dark horse was a little too good. But what he didn't see was that not long after he left, above the Broken Dragon pool, in the midst of countless stormy waves, there was clearly a huge whirlpool that was constantly rotating. The entire huge sea surface was being absorbed by this huge force. Therefore, a huge whirlpool formed around him, radiating outwards with him as the center. It was very prosperous and powerful. He frowned, but soon he had to leave. Without permission, it was not allowed to stay in the Broken Dragon pool for a long time. Even an elite disciple like him was no exception. Outside of the God Transformation Abyss, no force that Yi Shiwen knew was comparable to the Broken Dragon clan. Don't worry! He directly opened his domain and operated the Observing Person scripture. His whole body turned into a huge universe. This universe slowly operated, and countless energy was absorbed. At the same time, he was also operating the Celestial Emperor weapon refining technique. He actually began to use the Celestial Emperor weapon refining technique to refine this Broken Dragon stone. In the Weapon Emperor heaven, only the Weapon Emperor path was the true assistant path. It was also the only recognized mainstream martial arts. This is considered fulfilling our original promise. I think you should have heard of the Broken Dragon pool. It is said that it was left behind by His Majesty the Weapon Emperor in the past. Cultivating in it will definitely make rapid progress. The key lay in the fight for the third spot. Everyone was taken aback. In the end, it was Ling Fei who fought all the way to the end. She won the final victory without any suspense by relying on the two divine tools, one for attack and one for defense. The broken dragon stone gave him a very complicated feeling. He didn't know what other mysteries were hidden in it. However, the things left behind by the Weapon Emperor were obviously not that simple. This kind of opportunity, even for a core disciple like him, was not something that could be encountered at any time. As he continued to refine the broken dragon stone, his level was improving at an astonishing speed. Of course, the mysterious space within his body was also constantly analyzing the Celestial Emperor weapon refining technique and the various mysteries of the broken dragon stone. It was no wonder that the Broken Dragon clan regarded this place as a hidden secret. The Broken Dragon pool could cultivate a large number of experts continuously. However, it was obvious that the Broken Dragon clan had taken a different path. They didn't open it to ordinary people. Instead, they used it to cultivate a small number of elite geniuses. Otherwise, even a huge amount of energy wouldn't be able to withstand this kind of consumption. Chapter 2265. Countless energy continuously rushed into his body. His Celestial Emperor tool refining technique was also improving at an amazing speed. Anyway, it was the Duanlong family's wealth that was being consumed here, not his. He did not have to worry at all. Especially as he refined more and more parts of the Broken Dragon stone, he even had a lot of insight. He finally understood why the Broken Dragon stone was the foundation of the Duanlong family. No wonder the Duanlong family did not hesitate to fall out with the Equipment Emperor Pavilion to keep the Broken Dragon stone. In just a few short months, he was able to completely deduce the Broken Dragon tablet smashing hand of the Broken Dragon clan by refining the Broken Dragon stone. For the people of the Duanlong family, it was a sacred object. It was very rare for them to have the opportunity to comprehend it. They never thought of refining the Broken Dragon stone. However, Yi Shiwen did not have such a psychological barrier. He completely refined the Broken Dragon stone as a magic tool. Even so, he found that there was no good way to refine the Broken Dragon stone. It was almost like a powerful magic tool instead of a magic tool. He could only use its amazing hardness and strength to smash people. Even if the opponent had a magic tool, they would not be able to withstand such a smash. However, even so, the power was amazing, far beyond the imagination of ordinary people. Half a year's time passed in a flash. Yi Shiwen, who was immersed in cultivation, didn't feel the passage of time at all. In this half a year's time, he was constantly cultivating, constantly refining the energy in the Broken Dragon pond, and constantly comprehending the martial arts of the Broken Dragon stone. This made his realm rise rapidly. He had already reached the critical point of the initial stage of the longevity realm. If he wanted to go further, he could only rely on long-term cultivation and comprehension. Now, with the Tao pattern left by the Equipment Emperor on the Broken Dragon stone, he had a feeling of sudden enlightenment. In addition to the crazy analysis and comprehension in the mysterious space, he had rushed to the middle stage of the immortal level in just half a year. It could almost be said that as long as he accumulated enough skills, it was only a matter of time to trigger the god's retribution. However, he still woke up because he felt the aura of the god's retribution. Someone is crossing the god's retribution. He immediately reacted. After experiencing the god's retribution in the Tianyuan mirror, he was particularly sensitive to the aura of the god's retribution. His spiritual force swept out and he immediately saw that the person who was currently undergoing the tribulation was none other than Ling Fei. In the void, Ling Fei held a long sword in her hand as she battled against the deity tribulation. Although she didn't dare to release all of her aura because she was in the Broken Dragon clan, she still relied on the deity on her body. Overall, she was more scared than hurt. This god's retribution lasted for more than a month before it finally disappeared. Ling Fei had successfully crossed the god's retribution and entered the early stage of the immortal level. Ling Fei had crossed the divine tribulation. She automatically brought along the coercion of a deity. Rays of multicolored light descended from the sky and the earth. The endless divine radiance almost filled the entire space. This was the heaven's celebration of the birth of a deity. During this process, Yi Shiwen discovered that there was another figure. It was none other than Broken Dragon Wu Yu. At that moment, all of his injuries had healed and he was focusing on breaking through to intermediate immortal level. Yi Shiwen immediately immersed himself in cultivation again. He took advantage of the opportunity of free resources to cultivate desperately. A few months passed in a hurry. The surface of the Broken Dragon pool that was originally turbulent suddenly became completely calm. An amazing coercion radiated down and suppressed the surging energy of the Broken Dragon pool. What a terrifying and majestic energy this was! This unforeseen event alarmed the other two people in the Breaking Dragon Pond. Ling Fei and Broken Dragon Wu Yu had already experienced this before. So, they reacted immediately. Crossing the deity tribulation. Someone was crossing the deity tribulation. Sure enough, they saw a figure breaking through the sky and flying to the top. It was Yi Shiwen's deity tribulation. Neither of them went out. The deity tribulation could be said to be the most terrifying tribulation in the life of countless creatures. The difficulty could be imagined. In particular, the pressure of the godly tribulation made them tremble with fear. How terrifying was this godly tribulation? It actually made them, the gods, feel a great threat. In the sky, countless tribulation clouds condensed and formed a huge eye in midair. This eye did not have the slightest emotion. It was extremely cold, but it carried an unimaginable coercion. Yi Shiwen did not dare to take it lightly. Yi Shiwen took a deep breath, and the qi in his body rushed out. This was the deity tribulation, and it was also the last and most critical moment before he became a deity. It was he who attracted the deity tribulation. This time, if he did not succeed, he would become an adult. Voila! A bolt of lightning struck down. However, what was surprising was that this bolt of lightning turned into a green dragon in the void. It bared its fangs and brandished its claws, and swallowed Yi Shiwen in one bite. Boom! Yi Shiwen blasted out the 6 paths of reincarnation fist and directly blasted the green dragon into pieces. An unparalleled and terrifying energy frenzy quickly swept out, and Yi Shiwen's clothes fluttered in the wind. He frowned. Both of his fists felt slightly numb. The power of this lightning deity tribulation was much more terrifying than he had imagined. Below, Broken Dragon Wu Yu could not hide the horrified look on his face. This was a variant of deity tribulation. Deity tribulation was already very terrifying. Not to mention, this was the most terrifying variant of deity tribulation. Even when he was crossing the deity tribulation, there was no such variant of deity tribulation. Once this variant of deity tribulation descended, it was almost invincible. He had only encountered a few variant of deity tribulation in the end when he was crossing the deity tribulation. However, even so, he had been tormented half to death. He might not have made it through if he had not relied on the divine pills that he had prepared beforehand to recover from his injuries. However, Yi Shiwen had actually encountered a variant of deity tribulation from the very beginning. Who the hell was he? How could he be so terrifying? Even Ling Fei's beautiful eyes widened. She had seen many geniuses among the fallen angel clan. However, she had never seen such a terrifying deity tribulation. As the little princess of the fallen angel clan, she only had a lively temperament. However, she was not an ignorant bumpkin. She was very clear about what this deity tribulation meant. Royal Father said that all the geniuses are in our fallen angel race. I wonder how shocked he would look if he saw this idiot crossing the tribulation. The corners of Ling Fei's mouth curled into a good-looking smile. It seemed as if she was imagining that person's shocked expression. However, she was also a little worried in her heart. Yi Shiwen's deity tribulation was simply ridiculously strong. It was unknown how much stronger it was than her deity tribulation. Even if Yi Shiwen was very strong, it would not be easy for him to cross it. It was far from just these two people. Such a big commotion had directly attracted the attention of the Broken Dragon clan. After all, this was the foundation of the Broken Dragon clan. It was impossible for them not to pay attention to it. Moreover, it was such a big commotion. This is deity tribulation? Damn, who the hell is this deadly scholar? How could he trigger such a terrifying deity tribulation? No wonder he could defeat Broken Dragon Wuyu. How could an ordinary person trigger such an amazing deity tribulation? Such a terrifying deity tribulation wouldn't destroy the Broken Dragon Pond, right? No, we have to arrange a matrix. We must not let his deity tribulation enter the Broken Dragon Pond. Many experts of the Broken Dragon clan heaved a sigh of relief. Yi Shiwen seemed to know the rules. So, he didn't dare to cross the deity tribulation in the Broken Dragon Pond. Instead, he flew high up in the sky. This was a special space, and there was a strange energy everywhere. At this moment, it had completely transformed into tribulation clouds. Yi Shiwen raised his head and looked at the huge eye in the sky. He understood that it was the will of the heavenly way. This was not the will of the Tool Emperor Heaven, but the will of the entire universe. No matter where he was, he must face the test of the heavenly way if he wanted to cross the deity tribulation. If he could pass the deity tribulation, he would achieve the supreme way. If he couldn't, he would turn into ashes. He had no other choice but to cross the deity tribulation here. It could even be said that he used the protection of the Broken Dragon clan to dare to cross the deity tribulation. Otherwise, even if he cultivated to the peak of the demigod realm, he wouldn't dare to cross the deity tribulation in the Tool Emperor Heaven. What did crossing the deity tribulation mean? It meant that another creature was going to break away from the control of the heavens and become a supreme overlord. The heavens and earth wouldn't let this happen easily. The deity tribulation was also divided into two parts: natural calamity and man-made calamity. Geniuses were the deity tribulation. Man-made calamity was where many powerful existences sensed that someone was crossing the deity tribulation and came to get a share of the loot. In history, many people who crossed the deity tribulation eventually failed miserably. They fell short of success. This was not nonsense. It was a truth that had been verified countless times. Many people were killed when they were at their weakest after successfully transcending their tribulations. Some people even had their god shells snatched away, and some powerful spirits even entered their master god shells. When that happened, their tens of millions of years of bitter cultivation would go to someone else. At this time, the benefits of having a powerful inheritance could be seen. If he wasn't in the Broken Dragon clan, he would have to wait until he returned to the deity transformation abyss before he dared to cross the deity tribulation. With the protection of the experts in the deity transformation abyss, he didn't need to think too much. However, it was the same in the Broken Dragon clan. They still needed to use him and Ling Fei to resist the Tool Emperor Pavilion. Even if they wanted to turn hostile, it wouldn't be now. In the depths of the Broken Dragon clan, what kind of man-made calamity could reach this far? He could save himself a lot of trouble. Now, as long as he faced the natural calamity, he would undoubtedly be much more relaxed. Although it would attract the attention of countless people in the Broken Dragon clan, he didn't care. This was the most terrifying choice he had to face in his life. Chapter 2266. If he was not careful, he might die on the spot. He took a deep breath. Over the past 6 months, he had not only refined the broken dragon stone, but had also begun to absorb the energy in the broken dragon pool to cleanse his body and frantically accumulate power. Originally, he had calculated that it would take him hundreds of years to accumulate power. Now, he had completed it in just half a year. Then, he had successfully summoned the god Tribulation. This was the time to test the results of his hundreds of years of cultivation. A heavy pressure pressed down on his heart. At this moment, he finally understood why Yemo had been constantly emphasizing that he needed to stabilize his foundation from the beginning to the end. Yes, it was the foundation. Just like building a house on flat land or on the beach, the degree of firmness was naturally self-evident. Before crossing the god Tribulation, if one's foundation was not solid, it would at most affect one's future development. However, if one's foundation was not really solid during the god Tribulation, then it was very likely that one would die. In the face of such a terrible god Tribulation, even if one's foundation was just a little bit unstable, they could only die under the heaven Tribulation. Even for a peak demigod, there was less than 1 in 100 who could really successfully cross the god Tribulation. After so many years in the Xian world, there was only one leader of the Divine Union, and he had relied on some trick. Not to mention the Lord of the Abyss, it was unknown how many years he had cultivated, how many years he had been suppressed, and how much his foundation had been polished before he could cross the god Tribulation. These were all dragons and phoenixes, especially the Lord of the Abyss, who had accumulated for many years. Once he was allowed to truly prove his Tao, and if he was left alone, he would grow to an unbelievable level in 10,000 years. His foundation would be incomparably solid, and even after proving his Tao, his cultivation speed would be much faster than ordinary people. Even if he was given another 100 years, given Yi Shiwen's level, he might not be his opponent. Fortunately, Yi Shiwen had encountered him early on. At this moment, when he thought about it carefully, he felt somewhat fortunate. This was the time to test the results of his hundreds of years of cultivation, so he could not have the slightest bit of luck. Whoosh! Countless lightning bolts struck down, and in the void, they directly turned into incomparably powerful fierce beasts. These were not just formed by lightning. They only had the form, but not the spirit. Yi Shiwen could even feel the pulsating aura of blood in the bodies of these lightning-fierce beasts. Their blood was vigorous and surging, as if they were real divine beasts or fierce beasts that had been resurrected. It was unimaginably powerful. Yi Shiwen didn't hesitate. He covered his body with the 5 Emperors' battle armor, and directly rushed into the midst of these ominous beasts and mythological beasts like a matchless god of war. What kind of technique is this? Broken Dragon Wuyu's eyes flashed with brilliance. When he was fighting with Yi Shiwen before, he did not feel that Yi Shiwen had such amazing means. In other words, after Yi Shiwen had completely released his combat power, he was actually still hiding his strength. In an instant, he clenched his fists. He simply couldn't imagine that someone could defeat him while hiding their true strength. Is this his original strength? He wasn't sure. After being tricked by Yi Shiwen several times, he wasn't sure anymore. Who knew whether he had hidden his true strength or not? However, he had indeed guessed correctly. This was not Yi Shiwen's ultimate strength. Bang! Yi Shiwen's fist punched through the head of a white tiger. Blood splashed everywhere, accompanied by lightning sparks bursting out. His entire arm was submerged inside the tiger's head. His fighting method was exceptionally fierce. However, at the same time, his 5 Emperors' battle armor was torn apart by the white tiger's claws. Blood also splattered out. At the same time, even more ferocious beasts pounced forward. Each of them was more terrifying than the previous one. All sorts of mystic skills were released. A few phoenixes danced in the air, and countless Nanmingli fire burned through the sky. There was also Kuanpeng descending to the world. The northern underworld cold pool surged with unimaginable power. Those masters of the broken dragon family were almost dumbfounded. Who are these people? Even if they had successfully confirmed their Tao, facing such a terrifying ominous beast group would be a dead end. Many people were drenched in cold sweat. Fortunately, this was just heaven's retribution. If it was really the invasion of these mythological beasts, they might have to obediently surrender. In the face of these innately tyrannical mythological beasts, their resistance was meaningless. In the devastation of these mythological beasts, Yi Shiwen's ferocity was also stimulated. The star beast bloodline in his body was suddenly stimulated. His eyes were red, like a humanoid ominous beast, and an earth-shattering ferocious aura erupted. "Come on!" he roared, rushed into these ominous beasts again, and launched a shocking massacre. He could blow up a ominous beast with one punch and one kick, but there were more ominous beasts that left huge wounds on his body. Blood was constantly splashing out everywhere. Some of it was his, and some of it was those of these mythological beasts. These mythological beasts were not just lightning heaven's retribution. They had the blood essence of real mythological beasts in their bodies. Moreover, the heavenly Tao had pulled out their dissipated essence from the long river of history. Although it could not be compared with their peak state now, it was already terrifying enough. Just by looking at the horrified expression of those people from the broken dragon family, one could tell a thing or two. It was completely unimaginably powerful. Boom! 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 The battle went on for an unknown period of time. There was simply no end to these monsters. Yi Shiwen did not have a good piece of flesh on his body. Flesh and blood were flying everywhere, but he did not dare to stop at all. He kept fighting. Fighting had almost become his instinct. 6 paths of reincarnation fists, animal path. Yi Shiwen roared and blasted out the animal path with his fist. In the past, Yi Mo had already taught Yi Shiwen the complete cultivation method of the 6 paths of reincarnation fist. However, to successfully cultivate it, one could imagine the difficulty. Especially the animal path, if it was not practiced with the blood essence of many ancient ominous beasts and ancient mythological beasts, then even if the animal path of the 6 paths of reincarnation fist was successfully cultivated, its power would be greatly reduced. It might even affect the final cultivation of the 6 paths of reincarnation fist. But now, where could he go to kill so many mythological beasts? Even if he really had the ability, doing so would probably cause these mythological beasts to fight desperately. It could be said that the possibility of cultivating the animal path was almost impossible. And now, he actually wanted to use the blood essence of the mythological beasts contained in the heavenly tribulation to practice his fist. The heavenly tribulation wanted to use these mythological beasts to kill him, but he used these heavenly tribulations to practice his martial arts. Such an idea could be said to be unprecedented. How many people dared to do this? In the process of crossing the divine tribulation, who did not tremble with fear, fearing that they would die tragically under the divine tribulation? He killed countless ferocious beasts. Although these ferocious beasts only had a small amount of essence blood in their bodies, and they were far from the real ferocious beasts, and they were not at their peak, there were still so many of them. After killing for 10 days and 10 nights, his 6 paths of reincarnation fist finally had a form. Behind him, an incomparably huge 6 paths of reincarnation wheel began to rotate slowly. When it rotated to the animal path, suddenly countless ominous beasts rushed out. Qilin, Azure Dragon, Phoenix, Kuan-Peng, and many other ferocious beasts or divine beasts whose names were known or unknown rushed out at once, almost forming an army of ferocious beasts, attacking those divine beasts in the heavenly tribulation. Yi Shiwen's face revealed a somewhat satisfied smile. This animal path was really worthy of being the group battle technique of the 6 paths of reincarnation fist. Its power was endless. If he could really cultivate it to the peak, he could almost summon these ominous beasts from the long river of history, resurrect them, and fight for him. No matter how many enemies there were in front of this army of ominous beasts and mythological beasts, they could not be compared at all. What technique is this? It's so strong. Many people were shocked. They did not know that this was the 6 paths of reincarnation fist. If it was in the outside world, many people would probably be able to recognize that this was the 6 paths of reincarnation fist. However, although they could not recognize this technique, it did not prevent them from feeling the power of the animal path. It was almost invincible. When the time comes, if we can recruit this deadly scholar, there will be plenty of opportunities to force him to hand over this martial technique. Now, there were already many people who wanted Yi Shiwen to hand over this martial technique. After all, in their opinion, Yi Shiwen had enjoyed the cultivation of their Duanlong clan. It was natural for him to make some contributions to the Duanlong clan. This level of martial technique was too amazing. Even the clan lord would be alarmed. Yi Shiwen did not care. The magnetic orb was already like an arrow on the bow, it had to be released. He had to cultivate the animal path. As for their greed, it did not matter at all. Anyway, he did not plan to stay in the Weapon Emperor Heaven for long, let them find it. Those ominous beasts and mythological beasts that he blasted out were quickly submerged. However, he did not care. He just continued to blast out the animal path. Slowly, more and more ominous beasts and mythological beasts were killed by him. The blood essence in their bodies was refined by him. This blood essence was their key. On the contrary, it did not matter to their physical bodies. Heavenly tribulation could replenish and regenerate them at any time. Now that it had been plundered by Yi Shiwen, naturally, it could not be reborn. On the contrary, Yi Shiwen continued to refine these blood essence. The animal path became more and more proficient, and slowly, the power of these ominous beasts became stronger and stronger. Under this situation, the trouble that these ominous beasts caused to Yi Shiwen became less and less. Slowly, they could no longer pose a fatal threat to Yi Shiwen. Finally, Yi Shiwen won a breather. Taking advantage of this time, he continued to repair the countless wounds on his body and constantly operated the Phoenix regeneration technique. At this time, he did not care how much qi was consumed. As long as he could prove his Tao, he could instantly replenish it. Gulp, gulp. The void seemed to be boiling. A yellowish water rushed out from the space and instantly formed a huge sea. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.